Very recently, some heralds of the gospel have published a book which has been creating quite a stir in Catholic circles and the international media. It's a book which speaks about an intervention that the heralds of the gospel have been suffering at the hands of the Vatican since 2017. And this book narrates the facts which took place, the facts, the illegalities, and all about it. And today's podcast is very serious. That's what we're going to be talking about today. The book is set to come out in English very soon, and we want our public to know about it, the whole truth about everything that has happened. So for this today, we have with us Reverend Father David Ritchie.
Thank you for calling, for sharing this moment with me.
Father, before I present the others, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, about how long are you a priest? How long have you been in the Heralds? What have you done so that people can understand better everything that comes after this?
Yes, definitely. My name is Father David Ritchie, and I'm North American, but been living in Brazil. I was ordained by Cardinal Odilo, the Archbishop of São Paulo, in 2008. I have a master's degree in moral theology, and also done many postgraduate in education. Mm-hmm. That's education in the religious sphere. I would say moral theology is my emphasis, and in general is education because of the youth programs that the Heralds of the Gospel guide within the institution.
And how many years of pastoral experience do you have, Father?
Pastoral experience. I began dealing with Catholic youth groups when I was 16. Okay. So that's about 40-some years. 40-some years. But of course, in pastoral, in parish, also in not only in schools, helping to give religious guidance and pedagogic guidance in let's say in that which deals with formal education, very involved with formal education, but also always have helped out in parishes with the education of children, catechism programs and whatnot. So.
And we also have with us as a guest speaker, Father Joshua Sequeira.
Salve, Brother John. It's a pleasure to come back to your podcasts.
It's been quite some time since you.
Thank you for the invitation.
And a little bit about yourself, Father.
Well, I'm Indian. I'm from India, from Bombay, and that's why I tend to speak too quick. I've been in Brazil for some years too. I've been a priest for almost 20 years, but as Father David too, I've been working with apostolate for much longer than that, ever since I knew the Heralds. I have a doctorate in theology from the Angelicum in Rome.
The Angelicum is the University of St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, the Dominican University in Rome, in theology, in dogmatic theology. I'm a professor of dogmatic theology, especially Christology and the one and the triune God. I was ordained a deacon in St. Mary Majors in Rome, and a priest in São Paulo by the Cardinal Archbishop of São Paulo. I think that's it.
And Brother Joseph?
Thank you for having us back. Been a while as well.
But then there are people who have not met you before. If you can introduce yourself.
Joseph Bassi I'm from Canada. I don't have any of the studies that the fathers have over here, but
yes, you do. Not a doctorate or a master's degree, but you have all of the formation of a religious brother of a herald of the gospel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
20 years in the religious life. A lot of time in the apostolate, helping with the youth groups and the catechism. And
it's important, I think, that when we speak about such an important topic, we have let's say, our panel very well represented, not just by doctors, but also those who have pastoral experience and those who have lived the religious life like us, who've seen it, let's say, right from the base.
John, you might want to say a word about your career, your religious
No,
life?
people know him.
I've been here since the beginning.
We are the outsiders.
I take care of the podcast here for quite some time, but I think all of you know me already. I'm Brother John Kunikara. I've done my bachelor's in philosophy and theology. I'm doing my master's degree in philosophy now and accompanying this channel for a very long time, right from the beginning of this English apostolate.
And he's
online.
waiting to be ordained, and because one of the abuses of canon law that has been perpetrated because of this artificial intervention. And that's what we're going to talk about. Why Brother John isn't a deacon yet.
And Father, maybe we can take it right
And why
from...
many are not deacons or priests as well.
For the last 8 years.
So maybe we can start over there, Father, because like you said, it's been 8 years since we've been suffering an intervention. For the first 2 years, it was an apostolic visitation. After that, for 6 years, we have been commissioned. So maybe, and all these years, we did not manifest ourselves. We did not mention about it. Maybe we can start from there, Father Joshua. Maybe you can tell us about why this book was published by the Heralds recently. And why not before? Or why not 10 years from now? Why did we decide this exact moment to come out to the public with all these facts?
For several reasons, Brother John. Perhaps the principal reason would be since we've been cooperating, we've been receiving in the best way possible this commissariat for the last 6 years. And even the papal commissioner 1 year ago arrived to the conclusion that there's nothing more to be done. There's nothing more to be investigated. There's nothing more to be worked out. The papal commissariat, the apostolic commissariat, has reached an end 1 year ago. And he even approached the dicastery for the consecrated life and for the societies of apostolic life, saying that it was the case to finish off. He, after consulting canon lawyers, after consulting all those who studied the case and whatever, he prepared a dossier and presented that to the dicastery responsible. And he said, it's the case to finish off with this.
Therefore, it was Cardinal Damasceno, who was the papal commissioner, who decided that the commissariat no longer needed to go ahead. And honestly, he finished off with a report, and he took that to Rome and presented.
Or rather, he wanted to present it to the dicastery, but they slammed the door in his face. He was not even able to present the reasons why it's the case to finish off with this commissionary.
So at this moment, we are still talking about, I guess, a year back, we are talking about Cardinal Jean-Bras Yavis, isn't it?
Exactly. He was the prefect for all these years. He's been the prefect of the congregation and now the dicastery for the institutes of consecrated life and the societies of apostolic life, which in lay language we would call the dicastery for the religious.
Just for the ones who don't really know the language, canon law language, and what is a dicastery exactly? Can you explain that to us lay people?
The word itself has different pronunciations in the English world. I would prefer to call it a dicastery, and some people call it a dicastery, others call it a dicastery. They're basically ministries, just as governments have their ministries. You have a minister for education, you have a ministry for different kinds of things. The papal government works, the Pope works by the intermediary of dicasteries. Till a few years ago, they were called congregations. There was a congregation for the doctrine of the faith. There was a congregation for whatever. Now they're the dicastery for the congregation of the faith, the doctrine of the faith, a dicastery for the religious, a dicastery for life, etc.
Understood.
Okay. So you were telling us
And the
about-
president of this dicastery was Cardinal Bras de Avis.
He's called a prefect, isn't it? That's the prefect. Is the president of the minister, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's responsible for the religious congregations, for the religious orders, for the religious
All over the world.
institutes all over the world.
You were telling us how Cardinal Damasceno, he went to Rome to speak to the prefect to explain the situation about the heralds, and there was no more reason to continue with this commissariat. There was no justification to go ahead with this anymore. And then?
Well, in the first place, a commissariat that has already taken 6 years is something of a record in history. Nonetheless, having completed 6 years, having studied everything, the cardinal responsible for the commissariat, as I was saying, went back to Rome and wanted to finish off with it, but he was simply told that no, that wasn't the case. Rather, they would start a new investigation with everything once again.
Start all over again?
Start all over again. And once again, using the same terms that were used 8 years ago, which are completely generic terms. The accusations that have no, they're not particular, they don't mention anything. And basically, the accusations that touch everything of the Heralds. Every member of the Heralds is suspect of all types of crimes.
And Father, if you can just sort this out, you mentioned 8 years and then you mentioned 6 years. Why can you just sort that out?
Okay, because in order to start off with the papal commissariat, they used a legal appearance of legality. They started off with an apostolic visitation. Normally, you would visit a religious institution or a diocese or whatever to investigate certain things. And after that was investigated, if grave errors were found, you would pass on to a papal commissariat to put things in order. So they investigated us on generic accusations. When it was finished, when the apostolic visitation was finished 2 years later, you still had the same generic accusations. They didn't find anything. The apostolic visitation even said that it was positive, that their result was positive.
The closing report was quite favorable.
Was favorable. And nonetheless, a papal commissariat was started with the same generic accusations that had been presented 2 years ago after 2 years of investigation. And then 6 years later, so therefore 8 years later as a total,
and
we come to the same point.
And Father Joshua, there's something ironic because the date of the decree for the commissariat came out years before the date came out years before the commissariat was installed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's one of the things we could talk about later. The different illegal and faulty documental procedures involved in this process. This process has all the features of a classical violation of all types of law: canon law, natural law, civil law, etc. Perhaps it's difficult to say. Perhaps in Soviet Russia, you wouldn't find a process that was so illegal. That's something perhaps we could talk about later, Father David.
You know what the funny thing is, Father? I was thinking about that because as heralds, we lived through this, all of us, right from the older priests, right to the youngest members. But each one of us suffered in our own, so to speak, in our own houses, in our own, we faced some illegalities. But I think no single herald had the notion of the monumental size of the legal arbitrarities, the illegalities, the abuses of power, until Dr. Jimenez, who's a very renowned canon lawyer, decided to put together this book. At one point, he said he organized a group of heralds together. You know what, there have been too many things going on together. Let's put it all together and then present it to the Pope and to the public, which has been done. It has been given to the Pope already. And that was done. But then I personally was very shocked when I went through this because I had not realized the dimension, how wrong it was. I mean, we know there were some things here and there. We noticed that things were off. But I mean, the amount of abuses which are put together is frightening. It's unbelievable that in our days, the church or an organ of the church has done so many different things which are criminal.
I agree with you, Brother John. I've heard lots of repercussions from several people, even the people working on the book. They said that they were surprised when the documents were put together to see the size of the legal errors and the size of the abuses of authority that have been put together. And they say that any fiction book is less stark.
Reality is
stranger than fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Than fiction.
We would always hear rumors. You never know if it's true or not. And normally rumors exaggerate. But when you go to read the book,
Yeah.
The rumors were not exaggerated. They were less than the actual reality.
It's interesting that you raise this point, brother Joseph, because we are not. The book doesn't have opinions. It only has facts.
Yeah.
The book is divided into 3 parts. The second part is entirely a documental appendix. It has only documents. And the first part is a narration of the facts in simple language. But the whole time the narration goes back to the documents in the second part. So the whole book has nothing.
This is all
No,
documented.
I think that's
No, the 3 parts.
the other third part, yeah?
I forgot that we're being filmed, so we can even show this. This is a narration, this is the documents, and this, the third part, is a canonical study on the types of abuses that were perpetrated. Yeah. Because for a simple person who just reads the first part, he might not understand the canonical implications of certain things that were done. And to make it more clear, there's a study on the canonical aspects.
I heard Dr. Jimenez mention, the canon lawyer who made this, that with the documents that they found, we could write another 2 or 3 volumes of abuses quite easily. But he said the reason they left it short was because the book is already huge.
It's already
he said,
big, yeah.
I can write another 2 volumes quite easily because we already have the documents in order. Plus, something he mentioned was that the document that we published are the most important ones, but we've got so many proofs of the abuses that he writes in the beginning, it's available. If somebody wants any other document, which I was not able to put the official document here, just look for me, I can give everything to you. But the most important ones, which are these hundreds of documents, he already put here. Plus, he also has videos of conference, recorded videos. He's got audios. He's got online proof. I mean, all of this has been put together, and it's startling the amount of...
Exactly, Brother John. The name of the book is The Commissariat of the Heralds of the Gospel, a narrative of the facts.
This is what's going to be in English when it comes out.
Exactly. A narrative of the facts. It's just a narrative. It's not opinions. It's facts.
A narration of what happened.
Of what happened. And so every word in there is about facts. And if there's a word in there that is an adjective or something, and it doesn't have a document to it, it's because that adjective refers to a document that was not published. But we do have documents for another 2 books, and one of them could come out in another 15 days if necessary. But many of these things were not put into the book because of public shame, because the book has a lot of the first part, the narrative has a lot of photographs of all kinds of things. And some of the photographs had to be very well chosen for public decency in the beginning. If it necessary, other things could be published.
Yeah.
But Father Joshua, I think that our viewers have a doubt. And why is it that that Dr. Jimenez and his aides,
and Sister Juliana,
Sister Juliana, they only decided to publish the book now?
Because like you said, the report was a year back, and then after that, things have become better, many people think. Because Cardinal John Braziavis, who was a prefect, he's no longer there. Of course, we had a change in the pontificate. So many things have changed at Rome. So isn't that a sign of hope? Why didn't we wait for another year or so? Why did we decide to publish it now? Isn't the new prefect better?
Good question, Father Brother John. Well, the new prefect, the Sister Brambila, who is now the prefect of the dicastery of religious life, well, she seems to follow the exact same line as Cardinal Braziavis. She has refused us any kind of dialogue or any kind of explanation, just as we have been refused for the last 8 years, or the last 7.5 years before she took charge. That's one thing that has marked this whole process. The heralds were never before, during, I can't say after because it hasn't finished yet, have ever been called to reply. That's something that never happens in law, and not even in Roman law. On law, I think even in, I don't know which of the worst communist government or whatever, the accused has never even have been called to respond, to know what the accusations are, and to be able to respond to them. That's what Cardinal Braziavis did for so many years, and that's exactly the same thing that the sister has done right now. And so we have all the indications that everything was going to start again. They were going to start a new investigation, with exactly the same things. I was saying to you, what were the accusations? We were accused of everything, from slave labor to racism to sexual abuse to financial problems to torturing minors to whatever you could think of. We were accused of.
Some things you couldn't even think of. I mean, they were so absurd that...
Exactly. And also in the decrees to investigate, or for the commissariat, no individuals were mentioned. There was not... Normally when you have an investigation, you have to investigate such and such people. It's thousands and thousands of members of the Heralds of the Gospel all over the world were all suspect of these things.
The funny thing is, these things that you mentioned, Father, because even, I mean, in a certain sense, one thing which shocked me was that there were some unscrupulous media outlets who spoke against us when the whole thing came out. And they mentioned many of the things that you just said. Slave labor, racism, this and... But the Vatican decree, at least, I mean, they accused us of something that we could respond to. Even if they were absurd, the Vatican decree was worse than that. It did not even mention these points. Their life is wrong. The way they deal with money is wrong. Their administration is wrong. Their doctrine is wrong.
Their way of recruiting vocations is wrong. The way of forming vocations is wrong. Their internal administration is wrong. And
at least problematic. If it's not wrong, it's problematic.
But they're so vague. I mean, if you had a single instance in a whole history of a single financial fraud, any dollar that was not accounted for, they could not find. No, that's not. Everything is wrong. It's not that something is wrong.
And that's the thing. After 8 years of investigation of all these kind of things, they've investigated everything, investigated everyone. Above all, we've had to pay for that from the very beginning. The Heralds were put the onus of everything, of their travels, of their restaurants, of their hotels, of everything has been the Heralds. And they've also, I don't know if that's mentioned in the book, it could be in the second book, of how they demanded that they travel first class and that we pay for them. The amount of money that has been spent for them to lead this kind of life, to investigate us. Well, after 8 years...
And we bared everything, supported everything, coped with everything. And now, honestly, we have to give a response.
Yeah.
It's with all honesty, there's a right. There's a right that the Heralds of the Gospel speak to the world.
Yeah.
Also because, the right to say the truth is something that's a basic fundamental human right. It doesn't come from being Catholic. It comes from being a human being.
Yeah.
And since we've been accused of all these kind of things for so many years, a lot of people who follow us, who are with us, they realize that the accusations are wrong. But since we haven't said a word, people do have doubts. They ask questions. So it's necessary at some point to come up and say, well, the truth is this. So why did we choose this moment to say the truth? Because we have the best of indications that things will continue the same way.
Yeah.
We've been in the freezer for one more year after even the papal commissioner doesn't know what more to do. He says that he's produced a final report 1 year ago and nothing else has happened.
An unjust deadlock.
We're just frozen.
Yeah.
And this frozen means that we can't have ordinations. For the last 6 years, we've had deacons, more than 30 deacons who cannot be ordained priests. Some of them even they're young people. It's the best time, the prime time of their life. They wanted their parents to assist their ordination. We have some deacons whose parents have already died, have already expired.
Have died.
And why can't we have deacons? Why can't we have ordinations?
Because of this arbitrary investigation, this arbitrary intervention. In fact, that's one of the worst canonical abuses. Recently, in the last years, there have been several institutes that received commissariats, but none of them had prohibitions for their ordinations. This is something perhaps once again unique in history. Never before has it's completely against canon law. It's completely against all the praxis of the church throughout history. For someone to be prevented from being ordained without a canonical reason, because the reason that canon law permits are when there are when there are serious reasons, so for example, moral reasons or certain things like that. But when there aren't
serious
impediments against the candidate, he cannot be prevented from being ordained. In fact, to prevent him from being ordained for so many years is already to throw an accusation against his moral character that he would have hidden impediments.
No, that's something that we face. I mean, I'm a seminarian. I did my philosophy and theology. And this does happen when I talk to a seminarian outside. So how long have you been studying? So many years. Ask, when is your ordination? I don't know. Nobody knows. Automatically they think, you know what, he's hiding. He committed some crime. They're not letting him be ordained because he has some moral scandal, that he has a skeleton in the closet. So that's why. And people think that, but it's not just me. I mean, all the seminarians, none of them can be ordained. None of the deacons can be priests. And they think that's even worse. I mean, they did some abuse.
More than 100.
If you put all of them together.
You finished your studies, 3 years ago?
Yeah. This is my 4th year. I'm finishing my 4th year now.
4th year?
Yeah. Yes, Brother John, you're talking about another category. I was talking about the deacons.
Yes.
Now, the seminarians, we have 7 years of seminarians who finished off their seminary classes and could not be ordained. You have a whole bunch of members of the Heralds of the Gospel who could not make their temporary vows, renew their temporary vows, so they're frozen because the temporary vows were for each 3 years. And after 3 years, they could not be renewed. So they're like in a legal limbo with their vows.
Legal or illegal?
Yeah, exactly. Illegal. And others who could have made their permanent vows also haven't made their permanent vows. Also, you have students who have gone into the aspirants, therefore, who to the religious life, who could not be received as aspirants. And then there's a final category of students and their parents who have been defrauded in their expectations because of the dismantling of the educational project of the Herald. So we are talking about several categories of people, at least 4 or 5 categories of people, not just the deacons. So all this raises suspicions, raises doubts, raises, and besides the smear campaigns in the media, which that's another thing the book talks about. We have clear indications of a connection between the Vatican study and the media campaigns. The campaigns were always at the same time that the Vatican took a step against us. And normally, as the book well documents, once again, there are facts. Normally, the media campaign would start 2 days before the Vatican measure was made known.
Yeah, before we got the news as...
No, that would be not just 2 days. It would be about 15 days to 1 month or 2 months before we got the news. Yeah. We would normally receive the news from the media. And sometimes in some of the media campaigns, they even had documents, reserved documents, from the congregation, from the dicastery of religious life, leaked to them before the documents were officially notified to us. So how can a confidential document not be presented to the one responsible, and nonetheless the whole world gets to know of that before?
Well, speaking of the media campaign, one of the facts which shocked me the most was the first campaign, which, if I'm not mistaken, the one which started in 2017 against us, it started shortly before it started. Cardinal Brazia, who is in fact Brazilian, he traveled to Brazil and he met up with people over here. Shortly after he left, everything started. But what is impressive is that there are witnesses who write this. They went to greet him, and someone mentioned, because there was nothing against the Heralds yet in public. And somebody mentions the case of the Heralds. Father, the Heralds of the Gospel, Cardinal, you know about them something? I know about them, and I'm going to kick them in their chest. He said that. This is documented. We have witnesses who... He says that he travels, right afterwards, everything starts. And it's a very, a curious coincidence to say the least, that once he makes a promise like this, you can't make you don't have a direct proof of a relation, but let's say it's at least a sinister coincidence that a media campaign starts right after a cardinal promises to kick you in the chest.
Well, Brother John, the first chapter of this book is a little history of who Cardinal Braziavis is, of how he was as a bishop in the Diocese of Ponta Grossa in Brazil, and how his animosity, how his hatred towards the Heralds started out. And incredibly, in the Diocese of Ponta Grossa, he already did the same thing, not against the Heralds, but against certain opponents that he had in the diocese. He was very interested in liberation theology He in fact, he even said that he was, as the prefect of the congregation of the dicastery, he said that he was thinking of leaving the priesthood because he was so interested in liberation theology, and the Catholic faithful were not responding to what he wanted. And so he was so disanimated that he was thinking of apostatizing from the priesthood. But then he met a Catholic movement which promised him that there would be changes in the church, and that if he stayed on, he would be able to do things that leaving the church, leaving the priesthood, he wouldn't be able to do. And that's when he becomes the Bishop of Ponta Grossa in Brazil. And as the Bishop of Ponta Grossa in Brazil, he turns his attention only to social and political things. And the scandals that are current in the diocese at the time are documented in the book. And to go against his political opponents, because he tries to dominate the political scenario in Ponta Grossa, to try to dominate the political scenario, to throw down the political leaders over there, he starts media campaigns over there in the Diocese of Ponta Grossa. The modus operandi is exactly the same thing.
So you would say that Cardinal Braz de Avis' opposition to the Heralds of the Gospel is thoroughly ideological, therefore?
Well, I wouldn't say that. He said that. It's documented in the book. There are even pictures and reports of facts at the time. I think in the podcast I couldn't give all the details because I'd take the suspense out, right?
No one would want to read the book afterwards, right?
No, and besides, this is just the first chapter. I think we need to talk about the other chapters because the prehistory is interesting. But what we need to talk about is the history of the commissariat.
Father, it's interesting that we're talking now, this whole event with Braz de Avis, you're talking about the years 2000s, I guess, more or less.
Exactly.
The beginning of the 21st century. What is exactly, so that for people accompany us better, they know us on YouTube for some time now. They've seen the work that we do, the churches that we have, the ceremonies, the priesthood, all that. But maybe if you can say a word about the history of the heralds, our history with St. John Paul II, with Benedict XVI, of all the marks of commendation that we received from Rome over all these years until overnight everything changed. Maybe just a word about that.
Including the founder, Monsignor Ron Claudius, which was...
If Father David, who's older than me, would like to speak, I'd give the word to him, but otherwise I'd speak.
No, go ahead. I'll compliment you.
Okay, so our founder, Monsignor Ron Sconlamilio Claudius, a Brazilian, founded the Heralds of the Gospel. We were started off as a canonical, as an ecclesiastical movement in 1998, 1999. Monsignor Ron was a disciple, the perfect disciple of Professor Plinio Correa de Oliveira, who was the president of a civil organization in Brazil and all over the world called the TFP, the Brazilian Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family and Property. Dr. Plinio, as he's called in Brazil, always wanted his work to be a religious order. In the 1930s, when he was just 20 he was the most important Catholic leader in Brazil. He wanted his work, his first group of disciples, he wanted with them to found a religious order. And when he came to know of the founding of the Society of St. Paul in Milan, he realized that would be the type of juridical structure, the canonical structure that he wanted. That would be something that later on, many decades later on, would receive the canonical structure of a secular institute. Dr. Plinio even wrote to the superior of the Society of St. Paul, and he met up with him when he came to São Paulo to see if he could found a religious order on the same lines. That's the first time he tried. Along his life, he tried on several other occasions. Unfortunately, since he had to fight against the infiltration of communism into the Catholic means, and for other reasons, he wasn't able to found the religious order because he was thrown up against all kinds of opposition, including liberation theology leaders within the Catholic Church in Brazil, which was considerably affected by liberation theology. For example, in the 1970s, during the pontificate of Pope Paul VI, Dr. Plinio had even he even studied the possibility of founding a secular institute, which he even gave a name. It was called Regina Cordium, and he even elaborated the rules, the statutes for the secular institute. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, at that time, his first disciples, who did not want too much of a religious life and who were not even happy with having him as a president of a civil association, they were much less inclined to have him as a founder of the religious order to whom they would obey. They would need
obedience.
Obedience. They would owe obedience. But Monsieur João, who was Dr. Plinio's disciple, he already started within the TFP, which is what is known as the Hermitages. There was a beginning of religious life where young men would live community life. They would sing the office. They would live the three vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience without professing those vows as religious. And that would be a seed for the founding of a religious order. At the end of the life of Dr. Plinio in 1995, from 1993 to 1995, Dr. Plinio insisted a lot on the founding of the religious order now that the structure of the Hermitages had taken roots within the TFP.
They had community life.
And you had everything was already ready. It only needed to be recognized. Father David was a hermit in the US. Where was the hermitage, Father David?
we had religious life in Mount Kisco, New York, in Bedford, and of course, but my religious formation already began within that which we call the Hermitage of Presto Sum here in São Paulo, Brazil.
I remember when I was a young boy, a very young boy, I would look up to Father David. He was ready and have it. And
Brother David back then, and
they would sing the office, and the cortejos. What's cortejo in English? The processions, and we the little boys would say, "Wow, I want to be like that one day." And when they would put their hoods on, and at the end of the day, I was like, "Oh." So, and the Salve Regina, when the hermits would sing the Salve Regina at the end of the day. So, well, that was religious life already lived.
Yeah.
After the death of Dr. Plinio, those who did not want religious life separated from those who wanted religious life. So the great majority of members followed Monsieur João, and then he did something that Dr. Plinio always said that he wanted, was to have his work serving the church much more strongly with the help of the sacraments, with an abundance of sacraments and whatever, having priests, something that you couldn't have without an official canonical recognition.
Yeah.
And that's when the Heralds of the Gospel was founded.
Approved by...
It was first approved at the diocesan level here in Brazil, and then by Pope John Paul II in 2001. In 2001, therefore, the Heralds of the Gospel was founded. But within the Heralds of the Gospel, you have a specific vocation of those who are called to be priests, to be clerics, or those who are called to be religious sisters. Now, canon law does not permit a universal canonical structure. Not that it doesn't permit, it's impossible to have. It's impossible to have a structure, a canonical structure, that puts together priests, sisters, families, and everything together. You can't live in the same house. You can't have. It's impossible. That would be impossible. So,
even though the charism may be similar, of course, the specific finalities, the specific purposes of action, of apostolate, of ministry is different.
Father, if you permit a quick spoiler, one of the most, I guess, if it wasn't so tragic, it would be funny, but one of the funniest things that they try to do in the commissioning.
They who?
The commissioners who were put here, Cardinal Damasceno with his helpers, initially they tried to make a single rule for all the different people who have some relation with the heralds. And somebody opposed, Your Eminence, are you sure you know what you're doing? Because you're going to have the same rule for a housewife, for a professor who's working alone in another country, for a priest, for a sister. How are you going to put everybody with the exact same rule? And he himself realized that didn't make much sense.
Brother John, I don't think it was an accident. The whole series of events shows that it's more intentional than just an accidental error. But to explain that, I'd need to complete what I was saying about the three institutions. Well, the Heralds of the Gospel were founded as a private association of faithful. And therefore, it came under the Pontifical Council for the Laity, because it englobes, in its great number of members, lay people. And in the beginning, they were only lay people. From within the Heralds, some of small fraction of members are called to be religious priests. So a new form of canonical structure was given to these, and a society of apostolic life was founded by Monsieur Zhuang. This Society of Apostolic Life is on the same lines, for example, as the Society of Apostolic Life of St. Vincent de Paul, and etc. For Catholic lay people, they would already be considered a religious order. It is a type of a religious order.
Okay.
And therefore, it comes under another dicastery of the Vatican, not the Pontifical Council of the Laity, but the erstwhile Congregation for the Institutes of Consecrated Life and the Societies of Apostolic Life. Mm-hmm. In simpler words, the Congregation for the Religious, which nowadays is called the dicastery for the religious. So it's a completely different canonical structure, because the members of this Society of Apostolic Life are religious in all the sense of the word. They have, for example, they have a vow of poverty. They cannot own things on their own. Something that a private lay person cannot have.
Yeah.
A family, someone living in family cannot have a vow of poverty, because he needs to provide for his wife and for his children and for the future of his family. So they have the three vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. But once someone has a vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience, then when he gets sick, since he has no money of his own, the religious order needs to look after him. So you have a completely different scenario. That's where another technical canonical term comes in, which is the differentiation between public and private institutes or associations or whatever. A private association, the money of a private association belongs to the associates. For example, if you have a chess club, a club of chess players who are Catholic, they founded an association where they want to play chess, but they want a Catholic milieu, they want a Catholic ambience. So their money belongs to them. The day that they decide to finish off with their chess club, they can give that money or that room or the furniture or whatever to another association that they prefer.
Yeah.
Whereas a public association, the money of a public association belongs to the church. And because it belongs to the church, when it's finished off with, when it ends for some reason, when it's closed down, the money goes back to the church. But in the same way, the church provides for their needs. A religious priest who has a vow of poverty, he has no money of his own. Mm-hmm. So when he falls sick, his religious order needs to look after his medical expenses, something that someone who doesn't have the vow of poverty would not need. Mm-hmm. So they're completely different things. Now, all along this process, right from the first decree to the last day 1 year ago, on several occasions, the same error was always made. They always tried to put the whole of the Heralds of the Gospel as a public association. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to introduce a new person here. This is one of the helpers of the commissariat, who's called Bishop Danielson. While we were working on the constitutions, that's at the end, the final part, to finish off with the commissariat, which was never finished. But as the commissary wanted to finish off, we worked together with him in long meetings that took several days. Some of the meetings took 9 hours. One of them took 13 hours, We cooperated in everything in the hope that the commissariat would end. And one of the final things that was required was that the statutes of the Heralds of the Gospel, or rather, the constitutions of the Society of Apostolic Life, Virgo Flos Carmeli, be adapted and then presented to the congregation, the dicastery of the religious life, and approved once again, so that the commissariat would be ended. So we worked in these meetings on these adaptations to the constitutions of Virgo Flos Carmeli, the Society of Apostolic Life that looks after the priests. Well, Don Danielson, Monsignor Danielson, Bishop Danielson, he, after all these meetings, after everything was done, before the text, the final text, which was approved by both sides, by the commissariat and the Heralds of the Gospel, the Commission of Students of the Heralds of Gospel, of the Society of Apostolic Life, and etc., after the text was already studied, before it was sent to the Vatican, he adulterated the text, cutting out the part saying that the patrimony would go back to the individuals or to another association that they deemed fit. And he substituted that for words saying that, for a simple phrase saying that if the association, Heralds of the Gospel, were to be dissolved, their patrimony would be given back to the local bishop.
Well, but this is illegal. It goes against every law in the world.
Well, that's called robbery.
After the text was already approved.
And deceit too. Not only robbery, but also
he
deceit.
took a text that the priests of the Heralds, the Commission of Studies, they put together. He takes that text
in collaboration with the commissariat.
So it was a commission of studies that had been assigned to, had been constituted by the commissioner.
So once the text is ready, he makes his change, gives it in the Vatican and says, see, this is what they said. This, I don't know.
Falsification, deceit, with a view to robbery.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so from day one to day end to the last day. This
and all of this is documented with proof.
With proof. You have photographs of the documents. You have citations and everything. From day one to the last day, they tried to change the private association of faithful to a public association of faithful, so that they would get their hands on the money, which they think is a lot, and we don't. We know what it is.
Yeah.
So that's one of the illegalities.
What was a lot was the costs, especially the costs that were caused because of not only the expenses of being 2 years, 3 years, 8 years, ending up 8 years traveling, going to this country.
First class tickets. They demanded first class tickets. We have that documented.
All of the meals, but especially because of the law, all of the attorneys that had to be paid because of the dishonest.
Yeah, you're touching on another point, Father David. The economic sufferings, the economic
setbacks that we had to go through.
The economic setbacks that we went through. Because all these, the processes that were opened against the Heralds of the Gospel, the lawsuits, were, as I was saying, we have reasonable reasons.
Maybe, Father Joshua, you could mention something about the number of lawsuits that were provoked intentionally by the influence of those who were supposed to be defending and helping and guiding, specifically the commissariat. The commissariat was made, above all, as the commissioner had said many times, that he was there to guide, to correct.
As a father,
as a mother. That was the word he used. Father David, that's one of the things that documented in the book. That not only the commissariat, but also the apostolic visitor, he formally incentivated the gang of those who were attacking the heralds to open lawsuits against the Heralds. And so it functioned as a type of a triangle that supported each other. Lawsuits were opened against the Heralds, accusing us of all the most bizarre things.
Civil lawsuits.
Civil lawsuits.
Yeah.
At the same time, they went to the press, the most anti-Catholic press, to say that the Heralds were accused of this and that and that, and to say that the Vatican was investigating the Heralds for the same things. So the Vatican was investigating us because of the lawsuits and the media. The media was making public opinion know that the Vatican and lawsuits were investigating us. The lawsuits were studying us because the Vatican and the media were talking about us.
There was no proof, but each one of them had the other two to rest
exactly.
itself on.
It's a very small group of people.
Who are these people?
Of criminals. We haven't yet gone to that, but the criminal lawsuits were opened against some of these people. But just to answer Father David's question, so there were more than 30 lawsuits opened against the Heralds, which were studied by different instances of the law in Brazil and in other countries, depending on where the lawsuits were opened. Some of them by the public prosecutor's offices, some of them by all kinds of things. Even some of these went up to the Supreme Court of Justice. And all of them, absolutely each one of them, investigated by the civil power, by the police, by whatever you want, came to the conclusion that there were absolutely no proof. The accusations were false. And in most of the cases, they were even impossible to have been realized. Yeah. Because some things that, like to say, that exactly, something that couldn't have possibly taken place in such and such place. And we have all the documentation of that. That's part of the appendix, the documental appendix over here. But what it cost us, coming back to another thing that Father David was saying, what it cost us to go into these legal proceedings, which were fomented by ecclesiastical authorities, at least some of the proof we have over here, what it cost us for that, besides all the other things, it was another way by which we could have been squeezed out or smashed, crushed. Yeah. Because at the same time that happened, because of the media campaign, all our donations fell in a great way. Yeah, number one, we even have documents. That's another thing in the book. Certain donations that we would have received were formally cancelled because of the, within quotes, bad name that the Heralds have. For example, there is a company here in Brazil that makes biscuits and cakes and whatever. So they would donate to us food. And they sent us a letter saying that, well, we are going to suspend this for some time till the bad name of the Heralds is cleared up. But this bad name has continued now for 8 years.
Yeah. If we had a bad name which we could, if there was something which we could defend ourselves from, at least ecclesiastically, that is the worst part. Till now, they don't tell you what you're accused of without a generic thing. You did so-and-so thing wrong. I have a proof. Done. We can argue. We can fight.
Not even proof. Just say you're accused of such and such thing. Yeah. There's no specific accusation.
Accused, right?
That's one of the things that, coming to another issue, which is the case of the minors. One of the judges who studied the case, he says that all the accusations are generic. For a legal proceeding, you can't have generic accusations. You need to have specific accusations.
And many of them were from anonymous letters. And anonymous letters sent to the Vatican is enough to start a whole investigation which took years. But it has no value juridically. You have to tell who's making the accusations and with what proof.
Exactly.
An anonymous letter, I think he's evil. So what?
No, for example, coming to the case of the young students and the educational project and whatever, the Vatican kept repeating that the families of the students were accusing the Heralds of alienation, that their children were not allowed to be with their families.
To visit their families.
Nonetheless, all the families, once again, ALL, all the families, every one of them wrote letters. We have, I don't know exactly how many thousands of letters.
2,000, 300, 600, something
exactly, like that. Letters, saying that they were happy with the way their children were receiving education. And since they are the legal guardians of their children, they want that to continue. So how can all the families who have students studying with the Heralds, in the educational project of the Heralds, say that they're happy, and nonetheless continue accusations that families don't want? So you have generic accusations which are completely disqualified
By the concrete proof.
by concrete proof of absolutely all the families. But that's what happens in other
And also based on these generic accusations is when they made a decree that no minor could lodge in any house that was administrated by the Heralds of the Gospel or by the associations that are
This was
under
something really sinister, because what shocked me the most that in Brazil and other parts of the world, we don't have anymore because of this. We had boarding houses where we had
Sorry to cut you, Brother John.
lodging.
Father David, you're wanting to get to the most interesting part as soon as possible. That's the most interesting chapter of this book. The legal roller coaster about the students.
But
Go
what,
ahead, Father John. Brother
shocked
John.
me was that many of them were very poor families, and it was not that anybody gets the chance to study with the Heralds, because our schools are well known to be very good schools with excellent lodging. And many of them had to make requests. They had to go through exams. It was a hard time for
The schools that we used to have.
We used to have,
They used to
exactly.
have that they ended up because of the
Yeah.
lawsuits ended up.
Cancelling the schools. But the parents had a hard time getting the children to study there. And they were very happy because they were going to get an education above what their economical situation could afford.
Of course.
And
But the poor, being good to the poor doesn't exist in these cases. In ideological persecution cases, being good to the poor doesn't exist.
you just took the children, take them back, and the Heralds are not going to do anything for you. And
Not just take them back. Take them back in the middle of the school year. So they're going to lose a school year. The parents got so furious that they opened lawsuits against the Heralds themselves
I
and
read
against the
that in the
Vatican.
book the other day.
Because they didn't understand why their children were obliged to lose a school year.
Yeah.
And they opened these lawsuits with their respective governments, because this was not only in Brazil, this was in Portugal, this was in Costa Rica, this was in Colombia, this was in Ecuador, other places. And the government, the Secretariat of Education or the government, depend on each case, the Heralds were processed and obliged to not end the school year entirely in the middle, as it was as
because
we
of
were
a
obliged by
government
the
order.
Vatican. And some of while we were being sued, some of the lawsuits, the judges say things that are really, really strong. Well, they say that the Cardinal Braziavis, he was doing something that goes against the separation from the church and the state.
Yeah.
Because the Vatican has no right to interfere in in civil states.
Yeah.
Now, the process of education, because all of these schools are not, you can't have a school in any place which is not recognized nowadays by the local government.
Yeah.
And they approved, so they're institutions, they're civil institutions. The rights to where children study belongs to their parents or to their legal guardians. All these are natural rights and civil rights. There are a whole bunch of other things. All these rights are looked after by the civil government. The Vatican has no right to go into civil governments and tell them interfere with civil governments. So these decrees, Cardinal Braziavi started passing decrees that were not only absurd, that were not only arbitrary, that were not only tyrannical against the Heralds, but he thought that he could start oppressing governments, international governments. He created an international case. That's one of the most interesting chapters of this book. Father David, sir, he's a very nice person. He wants everyone to know the most juiciest parts.
I remember the disaster that it was, because when the decree from the Cardinal Braziavis came that the students had to go back home. They could not lodge anymore, because one thing was lodging and another thing was the school. They weren't actually boarding schools, but they were regular schools with the professional schools. And of course, the Heralds had arranged boarding for the students. So, and of course, that helped the parents enormously, because they didn't have to go back every day back home. Some of them lived far away. Some of the students lived.
Most of the students are from other cities in Brazil and from other places
from
around the
other
world.
countries. So, and the parents would come occasionally to visit, especially in the parents' meeting at the school. But at a certain moment when the Heralds were prohibited to have any lodging for the students, what happened? They're from the religious decree that we had to tell the parents, listen, you're going to have to find another school for your students. And they said, how can we do that? And they started crying in the middle of the school year.
Now I know why you came to this point, Father Dave, because it's your soft spot. You're the man with the education. Okay, tell us your experiences.
No,
Go ahead. I thought you wanted the juiciest part, but no, that's what you work with, right? Exactly.
I think that's what you felt the most.
Exactly.
And you saw the trauma of the families.
Tell us something of what you
not
experienced.
only that, another thing that happened is because of the false accusations that they spread in the media and that they went and made denunciations in the public ministry here in Brazil. The public ministry is
the prosecutor's office.
The prosecutor's office.
Public prosecutor's office.
What did they do? One of a judge that they obtained, they influenced a judge with false accusations, had actually decreed that the schools could not receive any more students. So we had the registration for new students was closed. What did they wanted to do? They wanted to use both aspects of the religious power and the civil power in order to put a deadlock on, and therefore their intention was the possibility of more religious vocations arising. Because of course, someone who studies in a school that is influenced or administrated, even though in a secondary fashion or in an approach which is according to the religious principles, of course, it's much easier for a religious vocation to arise from that atmosphere, from that education. So there was an intention to smother future vocations.
So once again, that would be another way to kill the heralds. Not allow, at the end of the formation process, not allow the deacons to be ordained priests, and at the beginning of the formation process, or even before it, to smother the possibility of getting new vocations. Once again, over 8 years, that would have been successful.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But Father, we were talking a little while ago. You started explaining how the historic process started with the heralds, how we were going very well. We had approval from St. John Paul II. Eventually, we got also all sort of praise and awards even from Pope Benedict XVI.
Well, the Society for Apostolic Life, the priests, and the Society of Apostolic Life of the sisters, which are two different things also, because you can't have a religious congregation of sisters that has priests. They're two different societies with their own canonical status, with their own constitutions, with their own mother houses, etc., etc., etc. They were approved by Benedict XVI because that approval was in after they were founded.
So the question I have is, and I think many of the viewers have, is how did this all happen? Because a few years ago, we have the heralds, super flourishing, a blossoming religious order, many vocations growing all over the world, many churches, a lot of apostolate. And then a few years later, we see that they're trying to crush us. At what point did it all start? And how did this whole tragedy begin, so to speak?
Well, Brother John, in something that perhaps that everyone who's listening to us would know, the Catholic Church herself has people who don't like the Catholic Church. Someone who was Catholic, and then because in most cases it's like this, because his or her moral life did not agree with this or that point of the Catholic Church, they start to go away from the Catholic Church. And then when that reaches a certain point, they start to attack the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So the heralds, that happens in fact with all kinds of institutions. That happens with the police, that happens with everything. Everyone has their detractors. So the heralds too had some. Together with these, you had detractors of the association, which was the TFP, which I had mentioned in the past. And because Monsieur Rouen was the disciple of Dr. Plinio, they kind of continue their hatred towards the TFP, towards the Heralds. So there's a whole bunch of small groups, very small groups. There was one Argentine man who stays in North America. There was a small group of people in Brazil, and they would put things on the internet that were very, very ugly. And with moral, sometimes you couldn't read certain of those things without touching on moral issues. Some things you need to confess if you read something like that, because there would be attacks not just against the Heralds but against the Catholic Church. There are photos of some of their publications on the social media earlier in the book, saying that against virginity, against etc. I won't go into details. The photos are in the book, but they always had a very little attraction because they were so violent, they were so abusive, they were so immoral that people would not, they wouldn't get attached to them. When Cardinal Braziavis became the prefect for the dicastery for the Institutes of Consecrated Life and the Societies of Apostolic Life, these splinter groups who were divided among themselves and used to attack each other and used to abuse anyone and everybody and the Catholic Church and the Pope and etc., when their accusations found favorable echo in the ears of this cardinal, then things started. Mm-hmm. Because then they came together and they realized for the first time that they would have an audience that they wouldn't have before. Because with the Vatican attacking us, their declarations to the media were now accepted by the media, by the mass media, because earlier there were some blogs with very few subscribers, but now they were open to the mass media because you had the Vatican investigating for these crimes.
It's almost like you had a calumny and then you put a stamp on top with church approval on the calumny.
Exactly. That's what happened. So you had splinter groups of...
They were actually individuals. Many times they were individuals who were ex-members, in some cases, ex-members, and who were unhappy because that was a problem of conscience. That was like a thorn in their conscience that, listen, I didn't work out, I wasn't successful, and now I have to
explain to the circles in which I've inserted myself how I spent 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or 20 years living a life that's the opposite of the life I lead right now. I need to explain to my now friends...
And to my conscience.
and to my conscience that I was eluded, that I was brainwashed, that I was badly treated, that I was slaved, whatever. To try to tell people... It's a psychological phenomenon. There's studies, in one of them is mentioned in the book, that when someone breaks away from a group, be it the police, be it the firefighters, be it a religious organization, they need to explain to the new group with which they find themselves what the reason was that they left something that is normally considered prestigious, and in many cases involves having a life opposite to the life I now lead.
Father, if you permit a small parenthesis, I remember cases, I don't know how many of them are mentioned in the group, but I remember concretely some cases of people who had to leave the Heralds, not because they wished to, but things came to a point that the life inside was not accord with a Christian life. Then said, my friend, you have to take another way. You can't remain inside anymore with the life that you're leading. Things went. And then we have, during years, emails from them asking them to come back. Can I come back? But then we would encourage them to lead a sacramental life, to go to the church, all that. But no, you can't come back now.
Some of these were even hired by us out of Catholic charity, love, so that they could have something to do in the world. Well, but they were directed towards marriage. They were helped out to put their sacramental life in order and whatever. And they were also given jobs. Some of them worked for the Heralds in certain things. So they were helped. We
have the documents that during years they write to us, thanking us for everything the Heralds has done, or oftentimes asking to come back because those were the best years of their life. We have this during years. And one fine day, they wake up, I hate them, I was tortured inside, they kidnapped me, they would not let me leave. And
okay, Brother John, you're touching on another point right now. These surprise conversions it's mentioned in the book. I'm not saying anything from what I know that would come out in the second book. No, even what I could say in the second book would be facts. But I'm talking about the first book. It's in the book that some of these cases were produced by a vitamin that's very efficacious, vitamin M, vitamin money. Where did that money come from is a nice question that the book raises.
They got money to change their opinion. They got money to write for us, against us.
They got money to spend time, full time, opening up processes against us, writing against us, going to the media and whatever for years without having to have a stable job. That all takes a lot of money, Brother John.
They hired advocates?
Yeah. Where does that come from?
Yeah, interesting question.
Okay, so coming back,
and it may not be clean money, perhaps. Who knows?
Well, opinions. No, I'm talking about facts.
Right,
facts, just facts.
Yeah.
Whether money's clean or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if it was clean money, it became dirty by what it was used for.
Yeah.
And who paid for the media outlets?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these individuals and whatever found favorable echo in the years of a cardinal. And then things started out. But the main persons can be counted on the fingers of a hand. Some of their names are mentioned over here in the book. They did not want to appear directly. So then they started to get together families of members of the Heralds or ex-members who were unsatisfied with the Heralds for some reason or the other. Some of these families unsatisfied because their children were Heralds and they were not satisfied, happy that their children had a religious vocation. Just like the father of St. Francis of Assisi was unsatisfied that his son would be a religious. So they started putting together these families and they used them to open the lawsuits. It's interesting that all these lawsuits, the documents of these lawsuits, have almost the same terms. They were written by the same person.
Or at least 30%.
And 30% are signed by the same person.
Wow.
They were opened by the same lady. Her name is mentioned.
The same advocate.
The same lady, exactly.
So we have different individuals all over the world making lawsuits, and all of them, by a mere coincidence, are using the same advocate.
No.
Same lawyer.
The 30% of the process are opened by the same lawyer.
Okay.
And the rest, the other 70%, have wordings that are almost the same also, even if they use other lawyers to open it.
Wow.
Okay. So, and
there are proofs in the book which show that this person had actually said, listen, you write your testimony, you witness what you experience, and then after we'll fix it up, we'll arrange the wording to help you, and we'll put anything that's necessary to
make it more salty.
Yeah.
To make it more spicy.
All of this is documented, you say?
Yes, Brother John. The book is, the name of the book is A Narrative of the Facts, 2017 to 2025. So, but hold on, then an interesting thing comes in. Some of these families who they were getting together, in the beginning, these families were treated as if some things about the Heralds that aren't so good, whatever, perplexities or whatever. But in the measure that they showed openness, these families were put together to make the lawsuits. And they were introduced into groups on Facebook and social media and whatever, where they started to note that the tonus, the volume of the accusations against the Heralds were ever more violent and ever more abusive and ever more unjust. And some of these families backed out. And when they started to back out, they were abused, they were discriminated, we have documents of all that. But not just that, some of them brought to us documentation of things that happened in these groups. Mm-hmm. So from a certain point onwards, we have documentation of all that happened within those groups.
The conspiracy.
The conspiracy is perfectly documented. So you know.
And what is interesting is that these groups, these little, let's say, groups that were making all of the noise, they ended up having great acceptation in the dicastery. Right?
Okay, Father David. So now I'm convinced that you're going to the juicy part straight out once again.
even the groups and the families of ex-members who gave favorable witness testimony, those that didn't count.
The dicastery, as we said in the beginning, for the last 8 years has never opened its doors to hearing the heralds of the gospel, number one. Not only that, thousands of written testimony sent by ex-members and families linked to the heralds have not been considered by the dicastery. But on the other hand, the dicastery and its representatives in the apostolic visit and the commissariat gave entire openness to the accusations of these detractors of the heralds, to the point that a certain archbishop who played a very important role in the apostolic visit, he enrolled himself in one of the most immoral and abusive social media groups against the heralds called ex-Heralds Hard, which is really immoral. And he was a member of that group for a long time, and he, in the group, incentivized others to
join
all kinds of things. And not only on that occasion, but on other occasions, you have the people within these groups telling each other, my daughter was received by Cardinal so-and-so.
Cardinal Braziavis.
Yeah, in this case, it was him. Yeah. And he said that, don't worry, I'm starting a commissariat against the heralds, which will be led by a cardinal, a nun, and a bishop. So from these attackers and anti-Catholic people came to know that we would be receiving a commissariat even before the media. Then the media came to know it, and the decree of the commissariat was
set. So therefore, he was fulfilling his promise of kicking the heralds in the chest,
exactly,
as he had promised
Father,
years before.
Something is not clear here, because a little while ago in the beginning, you also mentioned, Father, that at the end of the apostolic visitation, they made a report which was favorable to us. But then this man who was so partial, he, to the point of enrolling himself in a group against us, he gave a report which is favorable to us. That is not clear. And the second point is, why would a report which is favorable to us, would we receive a reward of a commissariat?
I'll answer your second question first.
Okay.
I'll answer it with another question. In Soviet Russia, does one thing have any link to other things?
The trial and the condemnation.
There's absolutely no need of a link, or logical link between a process and the condemnation.
Yeah.
So that's the answer to the second question.
The book has proofs about.
Father David, for the third time, the book is called The Narrative of Facts. It's only facts. That's there. So the second question is pretty easily answered. There's absolutely no link between the final report of the apostolic visit and the commissariat.
So the report could have said whatever.
No. The report
bad, it could have been good.
No. The report
Didn't matter.
was good, and the commissariat was made nonetheless.
Because they didn't care about the report.
Exactly.
I think they would have cared if it was bad. That would have helped. If they actually got a bad report, they would have used that to make things worse. But since it's good, it doesn't exist.
I was going to cut Brother John said, opinions, no. But perhaps using a little logic, that would make sense. Because if everything that could have been used against the heralds was used against the heralds or fabricated against the heralds, if there was a report that was against us, it would have been used.
Right.
The fact that it was silenced is a fact.
Because the report never came out, right?
Exactly. But we have the books. The book mentions persons within the Vatican corridors who gave us an idea of the report.
A feedback of what.
And there were not just one person. There were a list of people who.
Certain names are not mentioned in this book for the time being. If required, they could be mentioned to the general public, or at least to certain specific authorities who with confidentiality, we could give them the names.
Also, Father, you already mentioned that if anyone's interested, they can talk to Dr. Jimenez, and he's willing to show them other documents that they're interested in.
Exactly.
Of course.
But coming back, what was your first question?
So why did a man who, like you said, who took on the apostolic visitation with so much partiality, how did such a visit, so partial, end up with a favorable report?
Well, there are two answers, two parts of an answer to give to you. One, not this person who you're mentioning, but his auxiliary, who was also a bishop at that time during the apostolic visit. He traveled to some countries, which was Canada, Mozambique, and whatever. And at the end, he elaborated a partial report of his trip, obviously paid by us, to these countries. And this report, which is documented, as Father David says in the book, this report was sent by him to Cardinal Braziavis. And Cardinal Braziavis says, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean, but I didn't find anything? You need to find something. So the investigation saying that nothing wrong was found is not the type of investigation.
That's not an answer.
That's not
That's not
acceptable.
Exactly. But that's an official document from the cardinal to one of the auxiliaries of the apostolic visit. That's one part of the answer. And the other part of the answer is that, well, the main report of the apostolic visit, I don't know. People have consciences also. I mean, no one goes so far as the cardinal, right? Yeah. Or at least they had the good sense to not think that they could kick natural law, civil law, canon law, everything at the same time. They hadn't reached so far in their dreams of being, Alexander the Great.
So, Father, it's quite clear the whole history, how it all began, and the apostolic visit. And then maybe now we have to enter into how the commissioning began. What was the stage which took place? Because with a favorable report, between this decree and between the favorable report and the beginning of the commissariate, can you fill up a little bit the historical part? What happened?
Okay. Pretty simple, Brother John. This part is very simple. One day someone appeared in Rome at the house of the Heralds of the Gospel, the Procuradoria of the Heralds of the Gospel.
What is a Procuradoria?
Well, it's every religious institution has a formal address where it receives things from the Vatican. It's where
you can be found.
Yeah, exactly.
Bureau, maybe in English.
Yes.
I don't know the exact word. No, it's more than just a bureau. It's your official address. So like when someone needs to find you,
you're a representative.
Your representative, your official representative, because you could have other houses in the same place, but that's where you're officially to be found. So one day someone appeared over there, a Vatican official, employee who worked at the Vatican appeared there. This was like some months after the apostolic visitation was supposedly over. He appears over there with a document, and he wants it to be received officially by the heralds, and so therefore it's a legal document. So when the moment you sign that you received it, you've received it officially. And while it's being signed, he pulls out his phone and sends a message. The procurador, the priest of the heralds who's in charge of representative of receiving the document, when he receives the document, he signs it, he starts to read it, and he's surprised. He said, we've been commissariated. I need to transmit this to my superiors in Sao Paulo. And the time that he takes to go back to his computer and to open the computer up and to send the message, but before he sends the message, he doesn't need to anymore, because it's already out on the international news that the heralds have been commissariated. In the very minute that he signed, Vatican News published the thing. Perhaps that message that employee sent had something to do with the timing. And on the international...
If it didn't have anything to do with the timing...
That was the best time thing in history.
It must have been angels who communicated.
And a decree of the document commiserating the heralds of the gospel was published before it was notified to the heralds, because that notification happened in Sao Paulo many days later. I forget the exact days, whether it's 15 days or 1 month later. But the decree was already on the internet. So how did that decree get to the internet? Was it the congregation that sent the decree?
think there were articles about it which came out together as well, isn't it?
in Spain and all over.
So the ones who wrote the articles, they had the decree before. They didn't write it in 10 seconds.
No, and one of them published one of them published the decree. There's a photo of the decree in the on that came out on the web page.
This is indecent. This goes beyond.
An illegal a legal document that is notified to someone cannot be leaked before to the press.
Yeah, at least in a normal country, a normal government.
Exactly. Although some say that the heralds are disobedient, but they at the same time, those who accuse the heralds of being disobedient disobey basic rules of ethics.
Yeah.
Basic.
No, and
Humanity.
rules that would some of the things over here in the third part, the canonical appendix, the documentary appendix, not only are unethical, some of these things, but they turn those processes illegal. For example, coming back to this decree that you said. Remember the thing that I was talking about, public and private associations or whatever? So the decree said that they were commissariating a public association, Heralds of the Gospel. Now, the public association, Heralds of the Gospel, doesn't exist. What exists is a private international association of the faithful called Heralds of the Gospel. So you remember that part of public and private that people were talking about. So the decree said that they were commissariating a public associate. Cardinal Braziavis was commissariating a public association, Heralds of the Gospel. That decree is invalid because it's commissariating an association that doesn't exist. It's like saying, Brother John, I'm a police officer and I'm come here. I have a warrant over here to arrest you as your brother Peter. You're arrested. It's a warrant that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So
you're not Joe Smith. You're actually Andrew. Okay.
And I have a warrant for Andrew, so you're going to jail.
Exactly. So that was made known to them that the decree is invalid. So they took the decree back. They rubbed out the name public association and put private association, but on the same page, on the same decree, with the same date.
The same number.
With the same number, with the same date, and etc., with the same protocol number, etc. That's called falsification of documents.
Yeah, I think.
Because they need to issue a new document, a new decree in legal proceedings.
With the same juridical person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, also, Father, that decree, the original one, was signed by the Pope, wasn't it?
No, hold on. This altered decree was brought to us, and then it was said to them that, look. In fact, when they sent it to the altar, they said, "We send you the altered decree." They mentioned that the altered decree, a modified decree, which in canon law, in any law, but there exists a canon against that. It's in the book that an altered decree, a modified decree, has no value at all. What was needed to be done was a new decree needed to be issued with a new date and a new. So they said, "We send you the altered decree," and we said, "What? An altered decree, a changed decree? But how can an altered decree is invalid in legal processes?" I said, no. This altered decree has been expressly authorized, confirmed by the Pope. It so happens that in the Catholic Church, the Pope is the supreme authority. That's the way our Lord Jesus Christ, our Lord Jesus Christ instituted the Church. So something that the Pope does directly goes ahead of canon law. It's above canon law. But normally in Catholic times, in normal times, the Pope is not obliged to know everything that happens. Therefore, he has other people who studies that and other people who say, yes, Holy Father, this needs to be approved directly for such and such reason. And then the Pope signs it directly. It goes through normal channels. But this wasn't taken through normal channels. It was getting straight to Pope Francis.
Braziavis or somebody there took a paper to him.
Exactly, and he just signed it.
Sign here.
So they induced him to sign an illegal document. This is a juridical monster, a juridical elephant, white elephant, because an illegal document, but was expressly authorized by the Pope. So therefore, it turned it legal once again. So Well, that's one of the reasons why we accepted everything. That's one of the things that over 8 years we've been accepting all kinds of things because of all this.
Father, the conversation has been really interesting, and I've learned a lot. I'm sure those who are watching us as well. And we still have a lot to cover about all the abuses which took place. We arrived at the beginning of the commissioning.
Some of the abuses, Brother John. I'm not going to tell you everything.
Let's say the worst abuses that took place after it began. Also, we have to talk about the consequences for the heralds and for the church, because there were things which affected the universal church because of the legalities. But I think before that, we need to take a short break. So we'll come back soon, and then we'll continue with this conversation. Yeah.
Salve Maria.
There's a book out there that's causing quite a stir, and its title is The Commissariat of the Heralds of the Gospel, a narrative of the facts, 2017 to 2025. Punished without dialogue, without proof, and without defense. If you haven't read the book, then this video is for you. There are many out there who are saying that the book is exaggerated and that the heralds are disobeying the church and whatnot. But excuse me, all those who say this, they haven't actually read the book. So I want to spare you from making a fool of yourself by judging something without knowing the facts. So as you may have heard, the heralds are under an intervention by the Vatican. It's been 8 years now, and the first part of the book is a cold narrative of the facts. 300 pages, no opinions, just facts, nothing else. Or better said, a purely objective account with many documents that prove an incredible amount of abuse of power, illegalities and injustices. And the supporting documents can be found in the appendix of the book. In fact, these are only a part of everything that the heralds have gathered along the years. Because if they were to include everything, they would have to publish more volumes. The story begins long before this so-called case, long before the apostolic visit began. There was this cardinal who took a dislike towards the heralds and vowed to take revenge. For what reason? No one really knows. The fact is, and it's documented fact, by the way, there's even photographs. The fact is that this cardinal, Jerome Brasdevis, found a group of haters, of enemies of the heralds that gave him a pretext to carry out his plans. A little while later, with the help of certain unscrupulous media outlets, the matter took on the proportions he desired. Nationally and internationally, the heralds were slandered, mercilessly slandered, and from these slanders also came accusations and artificially fabricated lawsuits. Oh, and spoiler alert, the heralds have already won them all. Then came the first phase of the intervention, an apostolic visit, which is a kind of Vatican investigation. And this was decreed by that same cardinal, who was now the head of the dicastery of Institutes of Consecrated Life and the Societies of Apostolic Life, something like the ministry of the Vatican that takes care of the religious. Now, the charges or complaints against the heralds that brought about this investigation were never revealed. Even the matter of the alleged crimes of which they were to be investigated were not made known. It's like someone who had been arrested, tried, and convicted without even knowing why. I don't really know the difference between this and the Nazi or Soviet courts. But if that sounded strange to you, it gets even worse. Absurd even, when we see that not even the investigators appointed by the Vatican were given access to the mysterious information, that concerning information. It's as if someone were to say, there's something wrong with someone somewhere, investigate, search, but above all, find something. And if you don't find anything, you're at fault. Well, that's exactly what happened. And despite a great deal of effort, especially on the part of the chief visitor, Don Jaime Spengler, they found nothing. Now, the enemies of the heralds were given special attention by the investigators. in the regions that they visited. But the heralds, in spite of that, cooperated without objecting. All of the members, one by one, were interviewed, minutes were noted down, but all of this in the midst of a consterning perplexity. Why this intervention? No answers. And every time the heralds approached the dicastery to establish a dialogue, they were rejected with or without a response. Finally, the visitors presented their conclusions. According to them, the results were favorable to the heralds. So what was the reward that the heralds received? A commissariat. What a pleasant surprise, isn't it? Between us, let us not be naive.
Eu, como comissário, Dom José Aparecido como auxiliar, nomeado pela congregação.
The commissariat was already in the plan, and the apostolic visit was just a formality, just to give a veneer of legality to a plan that had already been decided. And so the commissariat begins, and everything was repeated once again.
Agora, o relatório confirmou a existência de situações problemáticas. Claro que é um termo genérico, evidentemente.
There were very serious allegations of serious abuse and offenses. So a pontifical commissioner was appointed to intervene.
O poder de governo, então, passa para o comissário.
A commissioner, you see, takes over the executive power of the institution. That is, he becomes the superior general. So everything was repeated. Not even the commissioner knew why he was commissioning the heralds.
Então, é mais complicado. Eu pensei que eles iam me dar um caminho, ó. O primeiro passo é esse, o segundo é esse, o terceiro é esse, o quarto é esse, etc. Nada. Então, nós estamos fazendo o que nós achamos que devemos fazer.
The same old story again. The heralds of the gospel were still in the dark as to why they were being commissioned.
De uma maneira muito genérica. Pois é, se entra em problemas concretos.
Fica sempre ressalvado o direito de pedir ao Santo Padre que reveja sua posição.
And the same old story. The dicastery continued to close the door to dialogue. And that same door that was slammed towards the heralds was opened to welcome the entire gang of the institution's detractors. The haters, the enemies, who poured out the venom of their slander, welcomed with the finest liquors. Double standards? You be the judge. In fact, from a legal standpoint, the intervention got off to a very bad start. First, with the empty, irregular, invalid decree intended for other entities, or even, believe it or not, for non-existent entities.
Sobre o que se trata de erros materiais do decreto, nós podemos pedir para que se corrijam.
Then they tried to correct it with another fraudulent decree. And finally, they induced Pope Francis to ratify this illegal document. This was only the first series of illegalities. Others followed, and the heralds resisted with the law in their hand.
Debemos dizer que no reconocemos os senhores como comissário.
Because if arbitrariness were allowed, anything would be possible, even the dissolving of the institution. The abuses of power against the heralds of the gospel were multiplied. I won't list them all here. Well, you'll understand why. I'll just mention a few. For instance, the heralds were banned from hosting the young participants of their educational project in their communities, and no proof of serious motive was presented for this measure, just like in a dictatorship. Except, of course, for the usual anonymous reports that were considered reliable in advance, right? As for the families who protested because they were unable to fulfill the plans they had made for their children, after using their right to protest, they were not heard. These same families joined together to ask Cardinal Braz de Avis to reconsider his position. Their petition had more than 2,600 signatures. That is each and every family of these young children. Ideological cruelty is not Christian, nor does it have limits, you see. Speaking of not being Christian, we'll just mention in passing the moral integrity of the assistants who were chosen for the commission. In the midst of the work of the commission, one of the assistants, Carmelite friar Evaldo Xavier, was involved in an international scandal because of certain intimate photographs of him which were quite revealing, to put it mildly. Soon after this scandal broke out, 2 more members of the team ended up resigning. And why might that be? And what of Bishop Denilson, who didn't play a very dignified role either, when he assaulted a sister of the Heralds of the Gospel? And I close here this sad and well summarized parenthesis of moral integrity.
Após aquela visita apostólica, a igreja então quer justamente colaborar com os Heralds.
And what was the result of this commissariat that was supposedly intended to heal and help?
E tomamos isso como uma missão de serviço, né? De ajuda, de apoio.
Countless injuries, not only for the institutions and their members, but also for the general public.
Da boca do Santo Padre, a gente tem bem claro que isso é uma missão que não deve ser destrutiva.
First of all, moral damage to the reputation of the institution by the shadow of doubt that was cast over it due to the abusive prolongation of this situation. Then, the economic damage due to the costs of the intervention, all at the expense of the heralds. Millions and millions. Institutional losses due to the unstable situation, apostolic works frustrated, ministry jeopardized. Because, I forgot to mention, 6 years ago, nearly 30 deacons of the heralds were forbidden from being ordained as priests.
A aprovação da promoção aos ministérios, entende? E a ordem, e as ordens sacras também fica reservado ao comissário.
Then there are also 6 batches of seminarians who have completed their studies and are awaiting their turn. All temporary and perpetual vows to be taken were suspended and new admissions barred. The dicastery led by Cardinal Braz de Aviz was responsible for all of this. This man is to be held responsible not only for his own deeds, but also for allowing these same deeds to be used to provoke a worldwide wave of slander. The victims are not, and that's crystal clear, the victims are not the ones who invented stories of alleged abuse to harm the institution. The victims, why? The victims are the very heralds of the gospel. Not just the institution, but each of its members individually who silently endured 8 years of this arbitrary intervention that managed to combine so many forms of crime, persecution, and abuse of power and conscience. But there is a limit to everything. And this book brings the truth to light. Now, don't let anyone fool you by saying that the heralds are wrong to defend themselves. It has never been disobedience to defend oneself against unjust accusations, because, in fact, by defending themselves, they are also defending Holy Mother Church, the one who was most offended and injured in this sad story.
So, before the break, we were talking about how the commissioning was decreed by the Vatican, and the decree which arrived at us together with at the same time it arrived to the media. In fact, it arrived to the media slightly before it arrived to us, like Father had just mentioned. Now we are going to retake the narrative from the media uproar which was provoked, the false uproar which was provoked artificially by the Vatican decree.
Brother John, if you permit me, just a little before this, something that's worth mentioning. As we said earlier, there are so many details. The process is so full of things that it's easy to forget details. Yeah. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why most people amongst us who saw the book was surprised by the number of illegalities and whatever, because there's so much of things. So one of the things that's worth mentioning is that at the end, towards the tail end of the apostolic visit, they sent us 8 questions on the most generic issues.
As usual.
As usual. Perhaps in some other point, we could talk about these questions. Perhaps they might be useful. I don't know how much time we have. But we replied to those questions. And not only did we reply to them extensively with explanations of Catholic doctrine and all, because some questions were really basic questions that a normal Catholic who practices his faith would know. Mm-hmm. We replied to everything. And there was a whole bunch of annexes, of appendices that were put to that to substantiate the thing as the best possible. It was the best reply we could have made. We didn't receive a single answer about that. If that reply was insufficient, they could have asked for more details, or could have said, oh, this is wrong, this is insufficient, or this is wrong. Nothing. We didn't receive a single answer. And then we received, as a prize...
Answer, commentary, condemnation, approval, nothing.
Exactly, nothing. And we received the commissariat.
Like you said,
there was a silence, a dead silence for a while. Then from the blue sky, the commissariat comes and...
Only that we came to know of it, once again, from the media, before we came to know of it officially. And there's one detail also that's important. And then I come to what you were asking. This media uproar that was taken against us, that was made against us, above all, at least here in Brazil, they used the Fantástico, which is a program, a Sunday night program, which is most assisted.
A show.
The most watched program during 50 years.
Everyone here in Brazil.
They made a big show, they made a big scandal. Above all, about videos on exorcisms and whatever. Things that had already been replied to in the 8 replies, which is the difference between a formal exorcism and a blessing of cure and healing, things like that.
Which had been judged, Father, if you permit me. This whole case, as soon as it took place, was taken to the church court, the ecclesiastical court, which judged, and there were people who were not the heralds. An external judge of the church saw it and said, everything here is entirely Orthodox, entirely Catholic. There's nothing wrong with it.
Exactly.
It had been judged before. It's been proved.
The bishop of the diocese explained everything.
So these exorcisms came out on video.
On TV.
On TV.
Which is an abuse once again. They were taken out of context, and the privacy of those poor sisters was completely violated, because not only given to other people, but it was given to the whole world and completely out of context. Imagine to say that someone has a sickness, some certain types of sicknesses. You can't say that openly. Yeah. Above all, when someone is suffering from vexations of the devil.
Yeah, Father Joshua, Brother John, if you permit, I would just like to, because I was able to accompany these cases with the founder of the Heralds of the Gospel, with these not exactly exorcisms, because an exorcism, an official exorcism of the church, has to be authorized by the bishop, and someone, a priest or a bishop, has to be appointed in order to
use the canonical formula or whatever.
Formula of the exorcism. But these were blessings of liberation, because exactly it happened, like as you're saying, if someone's ill, you have to apply a medicine. You can't go and if someone has a headache, you're not going to go put them into the hospital and say, listen, we have to make an MRA to see, of course, if the situation gets... But these were young ladies who were aspirants to the religious life, who were being tormented. For what reasons? It's difficult to understand exactly for what reasons, but...
tormented by the devil, not by us. Be careful. They're gonna...
Yes, they're being tormented by the devil, exactly. And Monsignor João, as a spiritual father, had the obligation in order to bless and to expel everything that he could do at that moment, he needed to do.
In spite of all the sequelae that he had of the
stroke. The stroke, exactly.
I mean, he could have said, no, I'm sick, I don't need to do anything. He took the...
And the sisters who went through that are grateful till today.
They asked.
No, they
They
went,
asked for it, and after that, they were grateful to Monsieur Jean. But those videos which were published, they show a scene of Monsieur
Which
giving
was-
the blessing out of context and makes it look like Monsieur Jean is tormenting the person.
The scenes are actually edited in order to not to give the whole story.
Yeah.
To demonstrate only partial aspects, and with sensational music.
Yeah.
Therefore, giving something that as though they were going through a torture session. Or
And the worst part is, this I found, I guess, one of the most indecent things any human being can do to somebody else. But it's much more sad when it comes from a bishop. Because one of the sisters, some of the sisters during the apostolic visit, the bishop would approach them who was visiting and ask them, so were you exorcised as well? Were you possessed? How are you? You can't do that to somebody. You can't just walk up to somebody and say,
Ask if they were
he was
possessed.
laughing in their faces. He said that, the way he said that was
That's cruel, right?
But coming back then to this media pro, in the first place, till today, for example, in the English world, if you look up Heralds of the Gospel or Monsieur Jean, there's all that you find is bad things, because they spread a campaign in about 135 languages all over the world.
who's paying for all this? Huh?
Exactly.
lies and lies and lies.
And like, it's a big campaign. And shortly after that, the commissariat comes out. But we did try to resist. We did try to tell the truth. So there are videos of the same sisters. They were not only grateful, but they made videos, and they were posted on YouTube, and they can be still found there. So there was a kind of a reaction to tell the truth about this program.
Therefore, they give their
Fantastico.
They give their own version, the correct version, because it's something that happened to them. It was their life and their situation.
Exactly.
And they were denied that defense in the same media that published the videos, distorted and
Some
edited.
of these media organs are also belong to ecclesiastical spheres. For example, Vida Nueva in Spain and so forth. Well, when the media pro was at its height, and we too tried to publish with the little means that we have, using the free channel of YouTube and whatever, publishing our version of the story. When the media pro was at its height, we received a recommendation from an important ecclesiastical figure who said to us, look, you need to accept the commissariat. That's the only way the Fantastico program will stop. Because they published, I don't remember exactly how many programs. There were 4 or 5 programs.
No, I think there were.
I forget the details.
From Fantastico,
main
there were 2, but there were many other channels which started at the same time. Altogether, it'll come to the number you said. But they did. But I mean, it's a dream for anybody in Brazil. It's such an important program to have your name mentioned once. I don't know if anybody else had the privilege of being mentioned twice in 2 consecutive programs about you.
3-hour programs. We were really great.
Which was the wrong reasons, but at least.
and actually, I don't know if they if that was financially beneficial to them. Spiritually, certainly it wasn't.
Once again, there's a curious link between the most anti-Catholic media and certain ecclesiastical figures. That's something that still needs to be investigated or still needs to be put to light. That's something that the book hasn't entered into all the details yet.
Maybe another volume?
Brother John. So when that's when we accepted the commissariat. And but talking about the lies, one of the reasons, in the beginning of this podcast, you asked about why are we publishing the book right now?
Yeah.
Well, using the media and using the commissariat, all those lawsuits were opened up. Just now, we've come to the end of all of them. All the processes, both canonical and civil processes, lawsuits have come to an end, favoring the heralds, showing that we have absolutely no culpability and all the consequent or the opposite. We've been slandered.
Yeah.
And that's on one hand. On the other hand, in October, this October, therefore last month, we have there was a movement in Fatima where different ecclesiastical groups were called to participate. And the heralds were represented there as also the priests from the Clerical Society of Virgo Flos Carmeli. And it so happened that the new prefect, the nun, Sister Brambila, was there. But she has towards us, she showed at that point, that she has towards us the absolutely same stance that Cardinal Bras de Avis has. Because she absolutely refused to even get into contact with us. And once we found ourselves by sheer accidents on the same street, going in the direction in which she was coming towards us in the opposite direction. Exactly. And she made it a point to cross the road and go to the other side just so as not to meet up with us.
Not to say good day, hello.
No, exactly. So,
Like avoiding the Samaritan, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I mean, she's done exactly the same thing for this period that she's the prefect. We haven't had a single chance to give our version. So even
But
if the
also-
cardinal has been changed,
Yeah.
nothing has changed.
I think, Father, also, I think some people may not be aware that she's not somebody who dropped from the sky. She was this cardinal's right-hand woman, I mean, the secretary at least, during... So,
And he did normally, contrary to the practice of the Roman Curia, when he was no more longer the prefect, normally the prefect, the older prefect doesn't appear in the office after he's lost his term because...
he should not influence
exactly.
the...
But he
normal,
continued
that's
staying in
decency.
Rome and he would go there every single day for I don't know how many months.
Wow.
Well, we also have news because the book this book started off as a collection of the first, just a collection of the details. It was in fact not going. It was not going to be a printed book. It was going to be just a copy of what happened of things. As things went further, we started realizing how much these media scandals and how much the lies that they're still spreading against us make it necessary that this book be made public, because the dossier of this was sent to the new Pope, the Pope Leo the 14th. And we received certain information, that even now in the Vatican, lies are spread about us, about several things that are here in this book.
Responded in the book, refuted in the book.
Refuted in the book, or whatever. And these lies are being spread by the congregation, the dicastery itself.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, and these lies have even come to the ears of the Holy Father. Yeah. So, I mean, it's necessary at this point that the truth be known. So that's the reason why it needs to be made known right now.
You see something, I guess, nobody has this choice, but something almost cruel in life, that for somebody to lie about you, they don't need any proof. And for you to defend your good name, you have to write a block of
700 pages. And
then we have to make videos, and then we have to, and after doing all this, we are still called disobedient, or we are called revolted because you're trying to raise a hand when somebody's hitting you. I mean, I don't know what else to...
This beast is not good. He defends himself when he's attacked.
That's a French proverb, man. When you kick a dog and the dog barks back, see, the dog is evil because I tried to kick it, it's trying to bite me now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we're not biting anybody. We're just exposing the facts. The book is not to attack anybody. It's just to say that stop hitting us.
Please, for the love of God, leave us in peace.
The true victims are the heralds themselves.
Yeah.
We end up being the victims of the situation. So
even our Lord did that when during his passion, when he was slapped, he said, "If I have done anything wrong, tell me what I've done. If I have not, then why do you hit me?"
Yeah.
So that's exactly our position over here. We're following as our Lord did.
I mean, if in fact there is an honest desire that we become better, in fact, that is what our Commissioner, Cardinal Damasceno, has repeated always. No? And he always says this, no, you should not take it as a punishment. You should take it as an act of goodwill from the church. I mean, the act of goodwill to try and help you to... But if you really desire to help, tell us in what we have to become better. After 8 years, you still don't know what you're trying to help us.
And of all the lies, this is not just a limbo. This is much more than a limbo. This is a continued attack. This so-called freezing of the situation is a continued attack. We continue to be attacked, and the lies are still spread about us in the middle of this so-called limbo of 1 year, from when the commissariat should have ended.
Just talking about the sanctions of freezing any ordinations and the progress in religious life. Therefore, no one, because you, without any proof, without any defense, without any
dialogue.
I think that's the main thing. There's been no dialogue between. They never give a chance to speak. The commissioner, yes, because he comes here but with the dicastery, there's been no.
The commissioner has no dialogue with the dicastery. Like Father said, the commissioner wants to talk to the prefect, and he's refused. I mean,
with the prefect and the prefectess also.
Yeah, and exactly. By both of them.
Exactly. And that's another interesting thing. Both the commissioner and even at the apostolic visitation, they said that they never ever knew the reasons for the job that they were given.
Yeah.
So it's not that only we don't know why we are being accused, but even though those who were sent to us to investigate or to substitute our authorities, because the commissioner does that. He takes away all your authorities and he becomes your authority.
The superior general.
The superior general of the Virgo Flos Carmeli and the president of the Heralds of the Gospel. Even he always said that he didn't have the least idea of what he was supposed to do. He
didn't receive the steps, the path,
all the accusations or anything. Yeah. So it's like investigate everything, investigate everybody. You need to find something, and if you don't find something, it's wrong.
It's like telling a surgeon, open him up and then fix whatever is wrong inside.
Right.
You don't know what is the person is sick, but cut him open.
And after 6 years, when he says, "Look, I didn't find anything wrong," they say, "Well, we'll put you aside and we'll probably find someone else to do the whole job from the start once again."
Exactly. And then what about, are they going to sew up the person? Or just
you already cut him open,
leave him bleeding till he dies.
Exactly. But Father, let's take this, from the top.
Time,
So the commissioning was decreed. Mm-hmm. There's a huge media uproar, and we had to accept to stop those programs which were slandering us. And then, how did it all begin once the commissioning started? What were the next abuses, the next illegalities? How was the roadmap of the commissioning?
Well, the roadmap was that there was no roadmap. The commissioner himself said that, and that's in the book. So there are a whole bunch of things that they tried. One of the things was the economic issue. They tried to see if we could be declared a public institution so that our money, the money that we receive from donations, would belong to them.
Yeah.
They tried to change the
patrimony.
The patrimony. They tried to change the nature of the institutes. For example, the sister, who was one of the assistants of the commissariat, she worked with the sisters of the Heralds of the Gospel, of Regina Virginum, and she was determined to convince the sisters that they needed to change entirely their way of life. Because the only thing, according to the sister, this assistant of the commissariat,
Sister Miriam, right?
Sister Marian Ambrosio. She was determined, absolutely determined, to say that the only thing that the church permits for feminine religious life is looking after the old age homes, or orphanages, or something else. She had 3 or 4 things like that. And she wouldn't permit a charism. She didn't even mention the contemplative religious orders for some reason. She wouldn't permit a charism. And from day one, she said that the constitutions of Regina Virginum were faulty.
And what, she was a canonist? She understood about this world? She
always declared, in the same measure that she always declared that she didn't have a clue about canon law, she said that often. She in the same measure, she also always made it a point to pontificate on canon law.
Wow.
So she declared that the constitutions were faulty. Now, how is it that constitutions that were seen by important canonists, and even the canonists of the dicastery, before it was approved
by the Holy See.
Before it was approved by the Holy See.
Pope Benedict XVI approved them.
Exactly. How could it be faulty in itself?
Yeah. I mean, she could have said that the constitutions are good. You are not following these constitutions.
Exactly. If you're not following your constitutions, that's one thing. But to say the constitutions are faulty in themselves. and she wanted them to change their whole life. Then she stepped in and she started to change.
So do they have the power to do that? Change everything?
No, because the document that gives her power to be an assistant of the commissariat makes them the substitutes of the superior generals
Okay.
of the institutions and the president of the Heralds of the Gospel. But there are certain positions that do not, according to the constitutions, do not depend on the superior general.
And all of this was approved by the church, by the Vatican.
That's in the constitution. Those positions are changed by the general chapter. So Sister Marian could not have changed certain positions.
No, Father, let me see if I understood it. So we have the superior general, but the general chapter is more than the superior general.
Exactly.
Okay.
The superior general can't change the constitution.
It's like in a country. In a country, the supreme authority is the president. But he can't throw away the constitution of the country without
the parliament.
Without the parliament, the Congress.
Exactly. There is a supreme authority even above the president.
Okay.
So the supreme authority of a religious order, according to its constitutions, according to our constitutions, is the general chapter.
Okay.
And she just stepped in and kicked people out. But she didn't even follow even the most basic formalities. So it's all documented in the book. There was this case of one sister who had a certain position, obviously the economic position. She was in charge of what's it called in English?
Finance.
The economist. Let's call it the economist.
Finance.
The economist.
The economist of
Accountant.
And Sister Marian went there and put someone else as the economist. But she didn't even notify the sister, that the first one, that she was no longer there.
So she was fired and she was not notified that she was...
No, she wasn't even, she didn't even know. So then there was a meeting.
She was the treasurer.
And the treasurers or the economists need to come. And two sisters came up for the meeting because both of them were the treasurer at the same time. So we're living in a legal chaos also. For so many years, every time a house of Virgo Flos Carmeli, because it is a religious order, every time a house is opened or closed, we need to notify the local ordinary. That's the local bishop.
The bishop.
The local bishop.
Yeah.
Because it is a religious order, you cannot act within the diocese without notifying the bishop. Till the year 2017, till 2000 of the Visit Apostolic, and above all till 2019, our records are perfect. We have a perfect communication with all the dioceses in which we work, and we have the legal authorizations to have houses in those dioceses. From then onwards, we don't have anything, because sometimes houses need to be closed, and the commissioner would simply not issue the necessary the paperwork. And new houses were opened. So we have verbal agreements with the local bishops, but we don't have documentation anymore. So you have all kinds of legal abuses. But then there are other types of abuses. For example, psychological abuses. This is really terrible. One of the right-hand woman of Sister Marian was Sister Fatima. In one of the meetings with the sisters, in fact, in the meetings when they were alone with the sisters, they were more vicious than when they were with Cardinal Damasceno. Interesting, because they had direct contacts with the dicastery. That's also proved over here. They were doing things that Cardinal Damasceno didn't want to go so far. So in contact with Cardinal Bras de Avis in the dicastery, they did certain things. So this is one of the things they did. Sister Fatima told us young sisters a story. I'll tell you the story, Brother John. The story is the following. In a faraway country, there was this wise man. He was known for his wisdom. And therefore, a young boy, he said, I'm going to prove that this wise man isn't a wise man. I'm going to take a little bird in my hand, and I'm going to go up to him, and I'm going to ask him, is the bird alive or dead? And if he says the bird is dead, I'm going to open my hand and let the bird fly away. If he says the bird is alive, I'm going to crush it in my hand and kill it. So the wise man has no way of answering correctly.
Yeah.
And then Sister Fatima gave a little plastic bird to each one of the little sisters. And she concluded the story. And she said, when the young man went up to the wise man and asked him, is the bird in my hand alive or dead? The wise man replied to him, it depends on you. The life of the bird is in your hands.
He was a wise man.
He was a wise man.
Okay.
But then Sister Fatima concluded, that's what happens to us many times. The lives of other people are in our hands. Many times, depending on what we do, we could decide the fate of others. Now, Regina Virginum is under commissariat. If you do not cooperate entirely and accept all the changes,
All the illegal changes that she did not say they were illegal, but all of them were illegal.
all the changes that she wanted,
Yeah.
the institution will die, people will suffer,
And you're the cause.
and you're the cause of it. Do everything we want. Basically, accept all the changes, give us all the legal power to destroy you.
This is not psychological manipulation. I don't know what is.
But I'll tell you one verse, Brother John. You know the bamboo story?
Bamboo. No.
This is Sister Marian's.
Okay.
You know, when I was reading a short while ago about how in the 70s and the 80s, the feminine religious vocations, for example, in the United States, fell by thousands and thousands. About 100,000 were lost in a few decades.
Wow.
Feminine religious vocations.
100,000.
More than that. I was wondering, how could that be so possible? How could that? So many nuns got so bad so soon.
Why did all of them decide to leave overnight?
Quickly.
When I heard the bird story and the bamboo story, I said, oh,
Makes sense.
makes sense. The bamboo story. Sister Marian said, it's a Chinese proverb. Anything you want to put forward nowadays is a Chinese proverb. That there was a bamboo, in a living bamboo forest.
Grove.
Grove.
Yeah.
And he was feeling frustrated because he was thriving over there, but he wanted to do good to others.
Who?
The bamboo.
Okay.
The bamboo shoot. And then one day, the farmer came up to him and said, look, I'm going to cut you. It's going to hurt. And then I'm going to scrape you, all that's inside of you. Take out your
Inner.
entrails. But then you're going to feel your life has value because you're going to be able to carry water to the most far places where the water doesn't arrive. And the fields are going to be able to thrive because you have carried water from the source to those dry places. Did you understand the moral of the story?
Hoping I didn't understand because
Regina Virginum needs to be cut. Its entrails needs to be changed, pulled out and changed, so that we could serve society.
As you can be as a tube or a channel.
A channel to serve others.
Yes. And therefore, it would be better that you go to Haiti and other places to serve the poor, right? So
stop what you're doing.
Every religious order has their charism, right? There's already...
So you have thriving churches, you're doing a wonderful apostolate, you're touching thousands of souls or millions around the world already.
No, and also,
stop everything.
And also material things. Lots of people are much better, even materially, because of the heralds. We could talk about that one day, because we are lie to say that we only help people spiritually. But you need to stop all of that and end up as so many defunct religious orders with no vocations, with a whole bunch of elderly vocations that are unable to bear spiritual children and that are dying out.
Yeah.
Is that a way to serve the church? Is that the way to help to take the living water far away, dying out?
And the problem is they didn't want to serve the church. They didn't want to help the poor. They want to crush the bird.
Exactly.
Everything else is a pretext.
Exactly.
Whatever you can make out is. I mean, how can somebody who speaks about using us to help the poor, we help the poor? But all the millions, and they're literally millions of dollars that have been spent on them, on their first class tickets, all of that was money that we were using on our apostolate, helping others, helping poor people. All of that is, I mean, it's an absurd.
The thing is that you don't understand the concept of poor, Brother John. poor is not a person. Poor is the pocket of the person who wants to take your money. That's the first person who wrote that story was Judas.
Yeah.
When Saint Mary Magdalene put the ointment, the precious perfumes on the feet of our Lord, he said that money should have been given to the poor. Well, the poor was his pocket.
Yeah.
So that's another type of abuse. But there are lots and lots of them. Many of those are documented in the book. I don't know if you want something specific.
So, Father, you mentioned in the passing very quickly earlier about a certain very grave abuse, which is the case of the deacons who cannot be ordained, nor the seminarians. Can you explain a little bit more about what were the pretexts which led to this, and what are the consequences for the church and all that?
More than the seminarians not being ordained deacons, there are a lot. There are seven classes of seminarians who finished and are not ordained. And by now you'd have even others, aspirants who would have come in and whatever. That's all grave in itself. But a specific canonical offense is an ordained deacon, someone who has received the first degree of the sacrament of orders, cannot be prevented from receiving the second degree of the sacrament of orders, cannot be made a priest, cannot not be made a priest, without specific canonical impediments, which are mentioned in the Code of Canon Law. If those impediments do not exist, the person cannot be prevented from making a priest. That is specifically mentioned. And that's something that the church has rigorously followed always. Even in the recent cases of institutes or congregations that were commissariated. Because the fault is not of those when the fault is not of those individuals who are deacons.
Yeah.
If the institution needs to change something or whatever, but the deacon doesn't have any canonical impediment. He doesn't have crimes, moral crimes or something like that.
Something, so that we can accompany better. What would be something serious enough, a legitimate motive? What would be a legitimate impediment for somebody to be ordained? A deacon to be ordained a priest?
Brother John,
according to canon law.
The Code of Canon Law is very specific. There are extremely grave reasons. For example, if someone has mutilated himself,
wow,
or if someone has contracted marriage, even civil marriage, or if someone has the crimes of being a schismatic, heresy, or whatever. So they're very specific and extremely grave crimes. And that's why that would constitute an impediment. You cannot be made a priest.
Yeah.
But other than that, because I don't like your face, because I don't like the boots you use, because I think your habit is old-fashioned, because I think your habit has never been used in history, because...
But I think that the commissioner, he asked the deacons if they wanted to be ordained.
Oh, yes.
There was a rumor a few years back that there was going to be ordinations.
Hold on. Not rumor, we're talking about facts. The commissioner, he sent a letter personally to each of the deacons saying that they do not have impediments and therefore he would like to ordain them.
Wow.
So we even have a documental proof that the deacons don't have impediments.
And the Vatican Cardinal Commissioner found them fit for priesthood.
Exactly. Nonetheless, when he wanted to go ahead with the ordinations, the cardinal from the dicastery, Cardinal Brasviavis, he said, no, you cannot do that. You will not do that. But the commissioner had the power to do that because that's part of his...
Does the cardinal have the authority to say no like that?
Technically, he could not, because that authority of Cardinal Damasceno, the commissioner, came from the Pope. The Pope gave him authority, so the dicastery did not have a way to enter into the middle of it.
Because he's in the place of the religious superior, and the religious superior has the potestad, has the power to give the letters. They emit the letters that are necessary for being ordained. So but nonetheless, Cardinal Damasceno,
he was forced. He was almost blackmailed.
Yeah, he kind of toes a middle line. Always, he doesn't go so far, or at least he's a little more prudent in the steps that he uses, because he realized that he's not able to immediately implement certain things that the congregation
he has stuck to the law at least. He has not done it.
In some places, in most places, or at least when obliged to do so. So that's the thing of the impediments, therefore the congregation simply overruled something that even the commissioner wanted to do, the commissary wanted to do.
And there's some other aspects as well, which is someone who's dedicated. I know a young man who is a seminarian, did all of his studies. At a certain point, he already had
7 years of studies, right?
7 years of studies, exactly. But he is from Canada. And when he met the Heralds of the Gospel, he fell in love with the order, with the Heralds, and he asked the founder if he could
He
join.
already had his university studies done.
Exactly.
He was working.
He even had a successful business, and he left that successful business, joined. This is one case of many, and then he was put in the refrigerator, in the freezer, because no solution.
After having finished his philosophy and theology.
Imagine the psychological
The trauma.
In the prime of his life.
in the prime of his life.
And there are many cases. I know some cases of that. It's really difficult. A deacon whose mother was all happy to see her son ordained a priest. And when he was ordained, she was hoping that, as normally happens, in the next 6 months, he would be ordained a priest. And then a year passes, and another year passes, and another year passes, and another year passes. And now she'll only see him as a priest from eternity.
Wow.
Because she closed her eyes to this world
And
and never saw her son a priest.
I heard something which shocked me a lot, where some of the deacons who said, my parents, they wanted to see me a priest, or my grandparents wanted to see me as priest. They have died. And one of my greatest desires is to celebrate masses for them, which I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I dedicated my life towards priesthood. I'm ready for it. I've been trained, and my character has been examined. They found that I'm worthy, but I can't because somebody decided no,
because
he didn't like my face.
But what about 30 priests for so many years? How useful they have been in so many places.
Yeah.
But just not 30, because 30 would have been 8 years ago.
Yeah.
In the next year, you'd have another batch of priests. And next year, seven batches of seminarians. So keep adding up the number of priests every time with 1 year, one less year. And multiply the number of years of work they would have had.
Plus, Father, the young seminarians, I talk to them sometimes, and you notice that they have a sort of, I don't know, like an identity crisis, because they are seminarians for no reason. When you're in the seminarian, you know that you're studying to be a priest. And they know that they're studying,
So
and
it ends up in being psychological torture.
Yeah.
No, and also not only with the ordinations, but they don't have any status. Then they're stuck in the air.
Yeah.
They're not religious because they haven't taken their vows.
and they can't take their vows.
And they can't take their vows. But they're not laity, but they're not ordained, but they're not whatever, but they're not just hanging out there.
And what is the reason behind all this? Nobody knows. We've been 8 years trying to find out what is the cause for all this.
And since the last year, when the commissary himself said that he wanted to finish up, when there was nothing else left, when we've already reviewed the constitutions according to the way that he would do them. I mean, we've cooperated for 7 years, doing every single thing that they wanted. And nonetheless, we have concrete proof that they want to keep this situation in limbo eternally in order to harm more and perhaps to start all over again with new
It's a little too
things
much.
have a limit. No?
Yeah.
So this book is like jumping up and down, saying, read me, read me.
And Father, I think maybe one of the most tragic parts of this whole story since we began, also something you mentioned in the passing, was the whole case of the miners. Can you count that with a little bit more details about how was this whole case of the miners, the young?
Oh, Brother John, that I don't have a head for the number of details. It was really complex. Perhaps Brother David would know better because he was more involved in it.
Some of the details I can remember, but of course I didn't follow all of the details because there were so many details involved, and it was the civil sphere and the religious sphere. And, well, of course, because of the accusations of this gang, and the dicastery decided that it was going to make a decree that because of the accusations, which were never proved,
Investigated. Not even
never
investigated.
and now were totally considered from the civil judges, from the civil sphere, were totally demonstrated as being false accusations. And even some of those who opened the accusations were fined.
Some of the accusations were even of treating badly minors of age,
Abuse and that sort of
abuse,
thing.
and also even sexual abuse. It's good to mention a word about this. There are three main cases. In one, the woman, lady would be too much. The woman who accused, she had been passed through the Heralds for 2 years, I think. The details in the book. Her accusation was studied by the civil judge or whatever, and it was so absurd. It's like a immoral thriller. It's so full of details, horrible details, and things that are unable to be proved. That the judge, the judgment itself says that there are imaginary the very accusations. Many of them cannot be couldn't even have taken place, because it's impossible for all that to have happened. But then her own parents deposed against her.
Testified
against her, saying that she is mentally unstable. Her own boyfriend did the same.
The boyfriend accused the girlfriend.
Exactly. He
Wow.
said that she's not mentally stable. She has been used by others.
Wow.
And actually, to such a degree that she was used, that her original text was modified, even because computer and expertise, they demonstrated how other people wrote, within the text, placed.
And the metadata of the accusation of the text of the accusation have been taken out. If someone makes an accusation, why would he have any interest in taking the metadata out of his
own computer from the text?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that would prove that it was not him.
Mm-hmm.
There's another case in the Northern Hemisphere where the person who accuses speaks perfect English, is an English-speaking person. And the accusation has wordings, is worded in a way that are Spanish, of someone who's learned English from a Spanish.
Who's not a native speaker.
Exactly.
So there's another person who wrote.
Exactly. So, like,
obviously.
each of these cases were studied by their local judges, and they were studied. They were proved that they were not true, and they were
thrown out.
Yeah.
And that's documented in the book. But these are the generic, without mentioning these specific cases, because these cases appeared in the media. But these are the cases to which the ecclesiastical authority, the congregation, the dicastery, refers to when they speak about generic accusations of abuse of minors and sexual abuse and this and that and whatever. So therefore, the minors need to be sent home.
And the funny thing is, if, let's suppose, when they made the decree, first they had the obligation to investigate before, which they did not do. But even if they did not investigate before they condemned us, before they punished us, at least when they saw that the civil court had done the work which they should have done, did not do it, and they had proved, they had come to the conclusion that those accusations were absurd. In fact, many of these, Father, correct me if I'm wrong, the very people who did the accusation, they took it back afterwards.
Those were the cases in Colombia.
Yeah.
Because they had the Colombians are very interesting people. They have a lot of vibrancy, a lot of energy. So the two people who are accused in Colombia, they lost all sense of measure. And when things started to go wrong for them, instead of going into a judicial accord, they were prepared to go to the end. But since they were wrong, going to the end would mean they would go to jail.
Wow.
And when things got so bad, then they had to make retractions. They retracted their we have the formal retraction that's documented over here.
Wow. They said that they did not mean that, or they were manipulated or whatever.
Exactly.
So you see the seriousness of in any one of these accusations? And what's the value of all this?
And on the other hand, while all this was the auxiliary of the commissariat, who was specifically interested and who took the most interest in sending the young children home and whatever, this difficult to say if it wasn't.
We're talking about the young children. When you're speaking about teenagers, of course. You're not speaking because there weren't young children who were lodged with the Heralds.
Yes, it's good that you make that. Yeah. It's good that you make that clear. The thing is, when I speak of young children, I'm talking of the students who studied in the schools.
It's a Portuguese system. In Portuguese, when you say young children, you understand what father's saying.
Exactly.
But in English, you get the wrong idea.
Exactly. Right. So the children who studied in the schools where the Heralds helped out or ran or whatever.
Yeah.
Because in fact, this is one of the things that appeared when this decree on the minors came to us. The first things we did was, it's documented over here, the Society of Apostolic Life, Regina Virginum, and the Society of Apostolic Life, Virgo Flos Carmeli, the priestly and the sisters, said, look, in our constitutions, it is specified that we cannot have minors staying in our houses because we are religious institutes. So we don't have any minors. We never had and we never will have. So you fine, just for you to know, you tell us not to have, but we never had.
We already don't.
Exactly, we already don't. And the Heralds of the Gospel, they never had minors staying with them, but they had minors who used to go for the youth programs in their houses and whatever, but always with written letters.
Parental consent.
But written. And all this was presented to the dicastery. But no problem, it didn't matter. And while we were being accused of all these kinds of things, one of the main aides of the commissary, he was the one most interested in sending cutting the educational program and ending with having any young people having contact with the Heralds or anything. A terrible scandal broke up in the Brazilian media because he was an auxiliary to the commissariat of the Heralds, and he was also the main commissioner, the male commissary of the monastery of São Bento, of Saint Benedict, in the center of the city of São Paulo, which is a historic monastery. It has hundreds of years. And something linked to the monastery, I don't know all the details, but pictures of a scandalous model life, also involving minors, leaked out to the whole Brazilian press. And the funny thing is that he was the one most interested in calling us, accusing us of sexual crimes or whatever, when he was doing the worst kind of things. And he even used...
Therefore, the coherence, you can see that there's no coherence in
so he resigned as the assistant to the commissary of the Heralds, but
maintained in
But Cardinal Braziavis maintained him as the main commissary of the monastery of Saint Benedict in the center of São Paulo.
Wow!
But when he resigned as the assistant of the commissariat of the Heralds, immediately two others.
But resigned only because his public scandals became known.
Became public.
Exactly, and he didn't have any face to to continue. When he resigned, immediately two other assistants, the main two assistants, Sister Marian, who already we mentioned, and another person, Bishop, immediately resigned also. What would be the reason for such hurry in that moment? I really don't know. And so forth. There are other things, en passant, that are mentioned in the book. So, but coming back to the question of the minors. So they were supposed to be sent home immediately. But sent home immediately would mean sending them home in the middle, cutting the schools of the school. I'm saying sending them home, it would mean cutting the schools. They would need to, if they were from other places and there were lodgings over here, they would be sent home. But if they were like from close to São Paulo or in São Paulo, they already stayed at home and would come to school. But nonetheless, they would no longer have a school. And they would have to find a school immediately. So this caused all kinds of problems, even civil problems, and that's where the parents stepped in. So perhaps Father David could, before I interrupted him, he was telling us about
Yes,
that.
those details were very precious, but of course, at the same time, the anti-Herald gang, also sent accusations that the schools were not the schools were not in order, that they didn't follow the curriculum, that they didn't follow the state, and they bombarded the educational system with false accusations about the schools. And everything was totally investigated, and everything was proved
By the Secretaries of Education.
by the Secretariat of Education, that the schools were in perfect order, that much the schools that were linked to the Heralds were in
Better state.
better state, in better order, and better level, and better results than many state schools. So that was the defense regarding the academic level. But
And Father, I don't know, Monsignor João, he always, our founder, he always wanted that all the documentation, everything to be with the
In perfect order.
In perfect order. He always,
oh yes,
Thank heavens we've already had that.
it was always in
I
order.
think something similar happened when, correct me, Father, I think you know the details better. I remember hearing very vaguely when they tried to investigate the administrative side, the financial side of the Heralds. That was...
Oh, that's another joke. Well, they put us to the... they asked us for our finances to be scrutinized by an organization that looks after, that scrutinizes, that audits the finances of ecclesiastical institutions here.
the Episcopal Conference and all that.
And we have our internal auditing looked after by international companies that are much more important, much more professional and whatever than the little company that looks after the internal auditing of the Conference of Bishops of Brazil. And so like it was like passing from, and I need to give an example. The details are mentioned, even if the number of employees and what they oversee or whatever Deloitte and the other companies look after. But like for people to have an easier idea, it was like we had an elephant and they asked an ant to check if everything was fine with us. that was the financial situation.
From what I heard also, the ant, when the person came to verify, when he saw that those who were already auditing us were much more meticulous than him, he himself was quite impressed.
No,
I didn't know.
Exactly. The ant looked at the
What are we
elephant
doing here?
and said, "Oh, I'm sorry that I called you to,
I'm in the wrong place. I think I should not be."
Exactly.
I mean, so anything, I guess, in a certain sense, it is something done with a horrible intention. All this has happened. But in a certain sense, all of this contributes to the glory of Our Lady.
although we are victims,
Yeah.
but Our Lady, the Blessed Virgin Mary, she ends up exalting those who are humbled.
Yeah. I mean, she used it via everything that we do. I mean, around the world today, I guess, since we started internal online apostolate in 2020, millions of people have done their consecration to Our Lady through the Heralds. We have, in every sense, we have helping the sacramental life, taking people back to church. And we are instruments of Our Lady. Everything that we do is for our Jesus Christ through Our Lady. But so to speak, she used this to prove that everything possible was scrutinized and they could not find anything, to show that we are victims in the middle of all this.
Yeah, people who knew us only from the internet by the good apostolate of Brother John, now know that we are not only on the internet, but like we have a solid formation, we have finances in order, morally, etc. It was like the best way to prove authenticity of what we teach and what we say and whatever. Yes, that's true.
Someone recently who came to know the group mentioned, I work in the civil sphere, and in my world it works like this. When I see somebody with 8 years and is under a court case and is not going forward, not backwards, not being absolved, in general it works like this. There's an authority who wants to condemn the person. He doesn't have any case. He doesn't have any court case, doesn't have any lawsuit against him which is actually valid. So he keeps you under investigation for as long as necessary until something valid comes up which he can use, and then it will be very fast. when they start delaying, it's a sign that they don't have anything to use. Because when they do, it's going to be very fast.
And they're waiting for something in the hope, they keep it in the hope that something would eventually pop up so that they could use it to destroy.
Exactly. But things have gone too far, no? And also, our lady is...
To produce proofs. Produce proofs, right?
Exactly.
That's the last step, no?
Yeah.
That's what they used with our Lord,
Yeah.
Saint Joan of Arc. But thanks to God, from the time that the book was needed to be made public, we've received the best of repercussions from all sides, and it shows that we can have hope. Everything has not yet, come to an end. Thanks to God, in the church itself, there are excellent repercussions from certain quarters. Not, of course, the quarters of those who are
A dichotomy.
exactly, but and we are going to have a lot of hope that things will be better now with the new Pope. He has been very what's the word in English? He's very supportive. Exactly. He listened to all the explanation that was given, and he was extremely supportive, and also on other quarters we have repercussions. So let's see how things go in the future, Brother John. I think it would be useful, yes, for people to know what happened, and be produces not with the idea of hurting anybody or anything, but just making things known so that the same thing can't be repeated with others or with us, and that justice be respected, and also that
honor be restored.
Honor be restored, and equitable reparation be made, because we have lost a lot of things along a lot of time, and some kind of reparation needs to be made for
the honor,
for everything.
Exactly, everything. And I think that's something important, that first of all, in a certain sense, just like we expect that things be put into order for us, also we had this duty to, because there have been people who've been supporting us for years now, through thick and thin. There have been donors, there have been families, there have been supporters who see us being calumniating, and some of them have been very grateful. Thank God for coming out with this, because I support the Heralds. You don't know how much I have had to suffer for this. Because when I see the enemies of the church coming out to me and slandering the Heralds, I don't know what to respond. I know that you're integral, but I didn't have any proof for that. And I would have to suffer in silence. Now, at least I can respond to them.
That was the main reason why the whole thing started. Dr. Jimenez said that one of the main reasons was this, that people who did support the Heralds above, in spite of everything, after 8 years, they needed to have some kind of explanation.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just keep them in silence, because otherwise it would even be like accepting that you have skeletons in the closet, because
exactly.
But nobody expected it the last 8 years,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. We hoped it would end sooner to let things, let's pass over this
exactly. And we would always cooperate. So like, in the next 6 months, and this was going to happen, it's going to end. Now we're going to re-see the constitutions, and it's going to end. And we're going to do this, and it's going to end. And we're going to do that, and it's going to end. Unfortunately.
Yeah. But now, like you said, Father, we have real reason to hope. And we would like to invite all those who are watching us now. First of all, we'd like to thank you for all the support, for listening to us, doing something for us that not even the dichotomy has been done, doing in all these years, listening to us once. And
you listen to us at least. No?
Yeah. And we ask your help to pray for us so that justice be restored, that things are sorted out, and then we can go back to doing all the good that has to be done, that the deacons can be ordained priests, and then they can do all the good to the church, above all, who is suffering in this story.
And above all, also the Catholic Church not be tainted by...
Exactly.
The fame of the church needs to be cleaned up a bit by having... That as I said, the exaltation of Holy Mother Church.
Yeah. So that's it. So with that, Father, can you give us a final blessing now for us, for all the heralds, and also for all those who are supporting us, helping us all over the world?
I suggest that we pray a Hail Mary, so that the Blessed Virgin Mary, who is the mother of hope, she gives us new strength to forge ahead, and that all justice and honor be done, as Father Joshua mentioned, to Holy Mother Church. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
And may the blessing of Almighty God, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit come upon you and remain with you forever.
Amen.
Amen.
Salve Maria.
Salve Maria.